This
talking, we
conference
raise our
will now
hands.
be
We'll
recorded.
try not to repeat ourselves, so we're not here all night. As far as that goes, we can get our points across, and we're happy to hear from you. And let's just keep it respectful and open-minded and see where we can get with it. With that, I'll give it over to Wayne.
Yeah,
with Cushing Terrell.
Wayne Freeman with Cushing Terrell. I'm gonna talk to the plan, these plans, and again, tonight, all we're really talking about is what we've generated as a draft concept for the downtown core. So I'll be talking to this plan, but it's on the website. If you go to cushingterrell.com/envision Ennis, you can see a bunch of stuff. This is included in that, and then back on the wall you can see the presentation that was given to the public 3 weeks ago or so. So this has been presented in a public forum, and we talked a little bit about it, I think, at the last council meeting. So with that, I'm going to talk to this again primarily to you guys, and then however you want to deal with it with public comment. So in looking at the downtown core predominantly, you can see back there on the imagery some of the slides and some of the images of what we see as a possibility for the downtown. And again, you're right, it's a very long-term plan. This is if you chose to do, if you decided, we want to do this and everybody got behind it, nothing's going to happen, but if you wanted to get behind it, it's probably a 5 to 10 to 15 year effort going through this. Funding is critical. Funding is a big issue. I'll talk to you about a couple of example projects where this has occurred. First, I think I mentioned one of these projects, Spruce Grove, Alberta, angle parking in the downtown core, very cold area. This is outside of Edmonton, but it's a smaller community that has a downtown area that looks very much like your current downtown. We went through this same process with Spruce Grove, Alberta, and went through to change, broaden sidewalks, get the downtown pedestrian corridor working so that people that are buying shirts at this store and want to go to this restaurant, they've got a clean way to go through there. My impression of your community, I've been coming here for 20 plus years. That's probably one of the most, to me as a visitor, and again, I'll say it again, I love your community, but that's annoying to me, is to try to walk through and try and figure out how to walk the downtown. You don't have any ADA standards downtown. If you're in a wheelchair, good luck. It's a tough road. Drainage is a big issue. So at some point, you need to start addressing some of those very issues, particularly the drainage issues. Those are health, safety, welfare issues. I don't recall ever falling on my tail on ice, but I've heard stories through this process of folks that have those issues just because the water just sits there and doesn't go there. The access and the truck traffic that continues to be more of a problem. I said last time I was here, I did a quick study at 8 o'clock in the morning from Norris Road, driving to town. I counted 34 trucks passing me. 8 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of truck traffic in this area. So you all know that. I don't have to tell you that. One of the other communities, and again, I look at Red Lodge as a community that maybe isn't. It's smaller. Carbon County, I think, is a smaller county than Madison County. Red Lodge is a destination. You're a through destination. But back in 2008 or 2009, there was a plan by MDT to widen the downtown streets to get people through and get traffic through the town quickly. We kind of were doing streetscape project for downtown, and we stood up and really talked against that and talked to the business owners, because the last thing I think if you're a business owner is that you want traffic. The last thing you want is to reroute traffic. I would not want that. I've seen it kill downtowns. Second to last thing is you want them going through fast. You don't. You want a neat, nice, and easy feel. But transportation planners being what they are, they're moving traffic. If you look at Red Lodge today, it's parallel parking. It's 2 lanes of traffic, and it's a thriving downtown community with walkable streets. I see from an easy, relatable community. It's a bigger community than Ennis, but I see that as being as a potential town that you can draw examples on, maybe emulate some things here and there. You're not Red Lodge, but there's some cool things about Red Lodge, I think, that would work here. So having said that, we've studied this town. I've had transportation planners here, planners, landscape architects. We've come in, we've worked with members of the public that have come into our workshops, and we looked at some of the key issues that you're facing. Parking, probably top tier on most people's mind, is being able to have parking so that people can park their car, come in and spend money in your community, and enjoy your community. Understand that parking's an issue. That traffic, that through traffic that's cruising through there all the time, that's another issue. The issue here, Mayor, you mentioned this roundabout. This was in the master plan for 1996. It's nothing new. It would have been the first roundabout in the state if you built it in 96. Now there's dozens of them, of locations. What we've sized there is a 1-lane roundabout that is sized for truck traffic to pull dual trucks through and be able to circle around. So there's that. I don't need to tell you all the problems getting in and out of the Widen. It functions a heck of a lot better than it did 20 years ago when it had the different direction. But it's still, as your community grows and as your community gets more and more passenger traffic, we just broke the record again in Yellowstone again this year, and a third of them all came through your town. So that's not going away. I think, again, the roundabout concept, it works. There's a lot of, I think back there's a lot of data on it. It pushes traffic through, but it's safe. And again, I tell you, the alternative is going to be a stoplight. And at some point, that will happen if you don't do something about it, or if we don't begin trying to talk with MDT. So let's talk about what we looked at here. Trying to address parking. You've got roadways that are off of here that are not paved right now. I tell you what I do with my drift boat when I come into town on a regular basis is I come in and I turn here, and I'll either park and go to this fly shop or to the cafe if there's parking traffic. If there's not, then I'll come down and I'll come up and I'll parallel park over here. Nothing signed, nothing says that I can do it, and nothing says that I can't do it either. So there is that issue, I think, is a big issue as far as having available parking count. So what we did, and I don't have the exact numbers with me, but it's in your book. We looked at, okay, what are some of the areas? We talked with this landowner here, who has the existing parking lot. And they say, and I'm not saying that this is the way it should be built or striped, but it's a functional way that does a couple of things.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there any way you can point to that map so we can all see what you're pointing at? Yes, please.
Yeah, we can't see on the table.
Or just, I'll just point where you're at.
Okay,
Because,
okay.
yeah, he's talking about right here,
Okay.
right now.
Okay,
So there is a, we talked with this landowner, and they indicate that they have a willingness to talk to you, work with you about restriping it, and having some public use. It's just been discussed when we were working on this and kind of, coming up with concepts for that. We went around and this is in the,
Accommodate all these people standing outside. We've got all this room, ridiculous.
I guess maybe if the folks in the first row can move forward and second row move forward and then standing room in the back. And there's a few seats over here.
I can go to the point.
so we talked about looking at maybe expanding the existing alleyway and adding parking.
This is a private lot here.
We can't see what you're pointing at.
Okay, so that's what Blake is doing. This is private property right here now. There's the town part, but this is what he's talking about right here, which is private property now.
Aren't all of them private property? The ones where you got second and all that,
Why don't
and
we just go
Shigetti's
through
and all
this
that,
and
aren't they all private
Can
property?
we, let's do the presentation, hold the question, and we will come back to it.
Okay.
But we are talking about this section right now.
So the library has unpaved parking area. We're looking at maybe, what if they actually had a designated parking for that? And then if you look at the side streets that are unpaved currently, really we're talking about just paving them and marking them. This is an example of how they could be used. Second, third, fourth street, First and Third Street on this side.
And there's parking. I'm not sure if you guys can see the parking spots labeled within the.
Yeah, and then in this case, we said, okay, what if we had back end parking? So this is actually angled back end for additional parking spaces near here. The parking lot down at the east end, this is indeed on private property. We've talked with Roy, but no response back, so I don't know whether or not that's even viable or whatever. But we, as master planners, we get to say, okay, what if you thought about this? What if you looked at this? May never happen, but what if you looked at this?
Gorgeous right there, so that's gonna
So what if, and then looking at the parking areas that are with the, associated with the school district. And the school district owns both of these lots, a portion of this lot. With the modification of this as a roundabout and moving this out further, you would actually be able to gain additional parking space in what is currently right of way for NBT. And again, this is, I see boats moving around the town pump and trailers trying to get in and out of there. Very difficult, but having some larger parking lot in that location would really, I think, free up some of that space. Incidentally, the gas pumps currently are on city and state right away. So I don't know how that happened, but you look at the Onyx maps, they're in a position where they're off of their own property. Let's talk about West Main Street in front of Shed Horns. Looking at this and saying, okay, the data that we do know that there's accident data at this intersection. It's a little bit squirrely trying to get in and out of there, difficult. There has been accidents, so there is data on that. But I think it definitely needs a through location. So having West Main be a one-way, adding additional parking along West Main rather than what they already have, putting back in parking out in front of Shed Horns, and then having that access out one way onto First Street, rather than that extremely tight intersection that doesn't have any site distance triangle work that work on the property.
So you're saying your traffic would be one way going this way?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. So,
No, First Street would be 2 ways.
Yeah, First Street.
But the,
This way would be,
First Street would be two ways.
this would go from
Yep.
west to east.
Yep. First Street would be
so
two
you could
ways.
go onto it.
Yeah, you couldn't access West Main Street from First. You could do it vice versa. The other critical issue, I think, is up here, and having a separate access point. I think having that offset off of 267 and providing parking and access to those businesses there where they have their own access and their own expanded area for parking. What this does, so why do all this? I think some of the obvious issues are looking at as parking or as people backing in and out of those stalls that are angled on the parking areas. If you're not familiar with how to do it, if you're not done it, you don't do it every single day, it is a little bit cumbersome. But the main issue, I think, is really looking at your town and providing more pedestrian access, more pedestrian connectivity and circulation through the area. It gives you 12 to 14 foot wide sidewalks in most areas. It gives you, again, I think as a part of this, you would go through and you would do the drainage, put water in the ground, do the drainage systems, get the water out of there so you're not dealing with it. It would unilaterally slow truck traffic down through that area. Some of the recommendations that we would have would be at this location and probably at 3rd Street and maybe even 2nd Street would be having those intersections raised up about 4 to 6 inches above grade. It's a trick to get trucks to slow down, forcing them to, and it's not a speed bump, but it's a raised elevation that it makes them go up and over. Once they do it once, you would sign for it, but once they do it once, they're not going to do it again. So it's again, looking at this from a transportation, from a planning standpoint. And I can tell you that whether you choose to do this and go forward, that's up to you. This works. This is a project or a type of urban redevelopment that happens a lot, and it happens a lot in the West, but it just works. I think the alternative, the issue I think is there is a reduction in parking on Main Street, but you wouldn't do the Main Street project until you did the side projects, the side parking, then the roundabout, and all the parking associated with this, and only then, at some future point, we can come back and even consider to go into a parallel with wider sidewalks.
And just, from those 4th Street to First Street, how many current parking spots do we have right now? Do you know?
Should be in the, I don't know what.
This would be, this would be a question that a lot of people will have, we might as well hit that one right away.
And maybe we can get that page, I don't know what page.
This one
Are
here.
you guys gonna purchase all those?
That
private
would, that, we would
properties?
have to, yeah, we would have to acquire those properties. So, yeah,
And
that
how's the
was,
city gonna come up with all that money to acquire all those?
Well, that's part of the problem. Let's get to the, let's deal with this first one. Right now, currently on street, we have 179 parking spots. The proposed with the parallel would go to 100.
Great.
God, cut them in half.
Well,
Gonna
and
kill our
that's
town.
why, I knew everyone was gonna have this one. So as you're looking at that, and that's why we need to have the additional parking spots in the other spots, where is,
So public lots now, we have 35 to 40 here. And then it would go to 121.
with the proposed parking, we would go to 421 spots though, from the current
In front of this
289.
business. Yeah. Figure it out, folks.
And then what of these
So you're getting
elderly
on,
people?
with the, if
That's,
we
that's
went,
if you could purchase all those.
Yes.
Yeah, and
That's
that's, yeah, and
but
that's.
here's with the, sorry to cut you off, but with this, like Wayne said, this would be a tiered approach. You would obviously get the parking loaded in before you would ever touch the Main Street parking. If we can find a way to get another 132 spots with this plan, this is a win for everyone in this town. Obviously, there's a lot of negotiating and getting of the land before we would ever do it, but who can say that we don't need 132 spots? Is there anyone in here that doesn't think we need another 132 parking spots in this town?
Not at the risk of pushing everything around.
Well, that's, it's coming whether we like that or not,
Well,
whether
it's
we want it
coming
or
if you
not.
let it come.
Well, you can stop growing.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Unfortunately not.
I also heard Wayne say earlier that he come to town and he had 2 spots there that he vocally stated he parked his boat. Now, I'd like to know how many of the older people would like to walk from like a north parking lot downtown. They aren't gonna do it. And if there aren't parking spots downtown, you're gonna lose business.
You have parking still.
Yeah, there's still
downtown.
quite a,
You will have more.
can you pull the map back up right quick?
Will they be
Not in front of
No, downtown.
Okay, hang on. Parking, proposed parking right now. This isn't even, and this is the proposed parking. Parking on each one of the streets. This is the longer distance one, obviously, where you would have to walk into town.
Have a
Parking.
75-year-old person walk from one of those parking lots in the unconditioned sidewalks during the winter. I dare you. Find people how they can get to yesterday.
Okay, hang on one second. There's still 100 parking spots on Main Street. It's not like we've taken the parking off of Main Street. It's not just poof and gone. It's still there. This is additional parking elsewhere.
I have a question, Blake, and it's just for the business owners. So for Lori, Demo, and Stacy, we had a record year this year, correct? Business owners?
Yes.
How many people lost business because we didn't have parking? 0.
There you go.
Record year.
Yep.
Record year.
Yeah, but there's no way of tracking that.
And you're proposing a change.
No, I'm not proposing
No.
a change.
No,
What I'm
you
saying is,
You're right.
leave it alone. We just had a record year with the parking that we have and the convenience of what we have. So why change it?
Because it's a better design and it's a mess right now.
You can't say that, sir.
I can say it.
No, you can't.
I can say it. I'm
No,
a
you
professional
don't live
planner.
here.
No, sir, you don't live here.
Right.
You're from Bozeman.
Hey,
I
yeah,
am
we
from
need
Bud.
to,
I am
But
from
but
Bud.
I made a very good point, Blake. A very good point. These business owners had a record year of any year on record in this town, and they did not have a parking problem.
okay, can I ask you one question with that? This town's growing, whether we like that or not, people can say that it's not. If we don't have something in place for the future, we are gonna get overrun.
So who does it benefit then? The realtors probably, correct?
Yeah.
And
Lisa?
anyone that comes to visit this town, it keeps coming. We had a record year from what you said, all by yourself, and it's just gonna keep coming.
No. People come here because it's a quirky old west cowboy town. It's not Bozeman. I see the parking in Bozeman with this, and you say that it's harder to pull in and back out than it is to parallel park. I disagree with you 100%.
It is more dangerous to do what you're talking about.
Oh, stop.
How many?
You know what? We're an old west town. We're not Bozeman.
Go,
I
Ford,
have,
you get your
I have
big
something
spot.
I can add, aside from parking, okay? You wanna propose all this change and do all this stuff. What about the water and sewer? And what about all this? You wanna do all this
Yeah.
parking and all this being
Stormwater
right, this and that.
Stormwater management.
I have, wait a minute, let me finish. I just wanna finish. I, at least 3 times a year, have to shut down for almost 2 days because we have a serious old water issue, old pipes that can't handle everything. I had to spend almost $4,000 of my own money to help the city replace the pipes in the main street. We had to dig from the back of the building, down the street, replace everything, which is fine, but none of that is ever addressed. We're always
No, it
worried
is
about
100%. You're right.
We're
You're
always worried about
absolutely right.
parking, and we're worried
You're
about
absolutely right.
parklets, and we're worried about slowing down the
This is
trucks.
only a small portion of the
I
draft
understand,
plan.
but this is always, it's always the surface.
So is
It
this
is,
issue.
it is
But
never.
so, just so you know, right now, we are working on a water source. That's the first thing. We have to work on the water source. This is a side thing on the backside. Kelly's here with us, but we're working on a water source. And with growth comes the growth of the lagoon. This is all planned stuff that comes out. This is a separate piece of that. We are aware of and are chasing a water source right now for a 3rd well. This is an infrastructure. We have the money sitting there waiting to be able to find it. Great West is at this point digging and looking for another well. We understand, and with growth, the lagoons will have to be improved. The water system will have to be improved. But it all comes together. It's all one piece of the pie. And we all saw the water issue this year. We knew there was a huge issue. We've known for a while that we needed more water, and Kelly has been diligently
It's not
chasing.
even about more water. There was a sinkhole so big in the back of the pharmacy, they had to shut the street down for almost a week.
So,
I mean, it was down, and
You
we had to
got
fit 2 backhoes in the bottom of that hole. And that isn't the only one.
Yeah, it was a water leak. We're worried about this, but not worried about.
Okay, Jason, please.
Okay, I just wanted to say that this is the master plan, but this work session is only about the streetscape design. So we do address a lot of the stuff that you're talking about in the master plan. We need to look at that. If you look back in the first part, we talk about doing that.
Well, why aren't you looking at that first then?
Because we already know we want to do that, and we're not debating. We're debating whether we want to do this.
Our
Right,
recommendations
we know.
are you look at that first.
We already know we want to do that stuff, and that stuff is in here too, correct?
Yeah.
We wanna-
Absolutely. All this is your downtown core. This is what people know about the area. How do we look at it? This is a tiny piece of the overall master plan. So it's, obviously it's the hot.
It is the hot
lighting,
topic, and that's why we're here talking about this, to make sure this part is included. But the rest of the stuff in here, we already know, we want to do future land map stuff, and we want to, hire a planner, or look at hiring a planner. We want to fix the sewer and water and make sure we have enough stuff like that. But as far as this plan goes, this is the main street site plan part of the master plan, and there's 3 phases to this. There's can you put the first phase on here? So this is something that I talked about doing before we even did this master plan. I said, hey, let's make parking spots on the side streets. So we'll leave Main Street the same way it is, but we'll put some side street parking and make it put some wayfinding so people know, hey, this is where I can go park, because I can't find a spot on the main street. And then also,
So you've surveyed the house owners of that property that you
No.
want to increase more.
no, this is just a plan. Something that
Suggestion.
we could do.
But if you put this in motion for future, you haven't talked to those who are gonna be affected. I think that's why everybody's here. And they're mad because this is like a dang secret, like those white cones showing up in our city with none of us knowing.
Right. But I mean,
Killing
if
business
you're
for a
thinking
month.
forward and you're planning ahead on stuff, you're obviously gonna do some stuff on your side streets.
Stand up, I'm too short.
That's private
So-
property,
Hang
all
hang
those
on.
ones.
Let
You're
him
gonna
talk.
take that from them.
So in this part of the phase one, there are some parking lots here that may not even be done. There's just a suggestion by Cushing Trail that hey, we're coming in here and we're saying, we're professionals and you could do this and you could do that, but we can't just do that. We have to buy that land or have a agreement with the landowner. So this phase one is mainly just improving the side streets.
Get in there.
So those are all
Can I raise my
privately
hand
owned
here several
side
times?
streets.
Yes, hang on a second until he's done talking. When you're done, then we'll go back.
He's done.
Okay. And then, so on to phase three, which would be the Main Street plan, that's something we don't even have to do. We could take that part completely out of this plan if we wanted to.
Just take the roundabout out too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little light there.
Are you looking for the stoplight that's coming? Because that's what's gonna come if we don't go with the roundabout.
Fine,
Sounds better.
fine. Put a
That's fine for
traffic
you,
light
but a
up.
lot of people don't like the stoplight. It's not just about what
Well,
you
no,
want,
but
it's
look
about
at our
our
business
That's gonna have to make it fair for all the businesses.
You
Do you know-
wheeler stuck
Do you
in
know
there.
how
You ain't
much
gonna be moving
land
what
you need
far.
to get a semi and a doubles around the roundabout?
Well,
I watched it happen in
This
Kid
is-
Harbor, Washington.
this picture isn't necessarily what it would look like, and the engineers and the state and every box you have to tick to get this, those people aren't gonna make this so you can't drive around it. I mean, it's gonna be a highway roundabout. Just gonna be.
Select fuel won't have a problem.
Hang on.
But this it does give us a parking lot that we can own, where you can have truck trailers parked there. You come through here with your RV, you can't park anywhere. You have to just keep going. You go to Cenex or that's it. This gives people with RV trailers a chance to park and come shop and spend their money.
And Wayne, can you tell everybody how the roundabout increases traffic by how much? I think I've been getting the number wrong.
Well, it doesn't increase traffic.
I mean, it increases the flow of it, like,
It's by 60+% increases the flow. So it is sized for a double tractor trailer, designed by our traffic engineers who also work on contracts with NDT. So we know it works. We know it could work. Whether or not you want it is up to you. Whether or not you want any of it is up to you.
If you take in consideration the roundabout in winter, that thing's on a hill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
They
is,
wouldn't
it
build
is
it
on a hill, that's
They
for
would
sure.
make it flat.
It would
You
have
could
to
dig
be.
into and make it.
You still would have to go up.
Would be engineered at some point, but we already do have to do that. We could use this idea and make it ours and make it nice, or we could have a stoplight there and make it ours and make it nice, but at some point, the state's gonna come in here and say, this intersection is too messed up and we have to do something.
The state doesn't live here, we do.
They own it.
It's the state's road, whether you like that or not.
Okay, so
And
I'm
that's
gonna
The
say.
state is not gonna ask for permission.
Outside of Ennis, we have West Yellowstone. We have Whitefish that I've been there numerous times. Okay? I don't know if you've worked as a master planner in those areas. There is not one roundabout. They all have still pull-in parking on their main, not on the main highway area, but on the streets as you're going through town. None of them go into parallel parking. So I guess I'm trying to understand is what makes Ennis so different when our population is a fraction of those cities or those towns that are managing just fine.
So again, as I said initially, the angled parking's quaint. I have a real problem with it. What I would like for is your businesses to be able to have wider sidewalks. That's probably.
We just had a record year and they didn't suffer.
I know your record year, sir.
Okay, well, let's stop. No, don't.
Don't stop, you're not on record.
Listen, it's after COVID, everybody's out. It's great. I'm happy for you. I'm just trying to say, here's an option. And again, if you don't want to do this,
We
it's
don't
no
want
skin
it.
off my back.
Yeah, we don't want it.
It's just an option. And you know what? I think we can do some of this other stuff, fix our intersection, add parking, and we can leave Main Street the way it is.
How about leaving it all the way it is?
Thank you.
Here, here.
Infrastructure and.
All right.
Please be
Hold up.
quiet.
I go back a couple of decades with John and we know what luck we've had dealing with the state over the highway through there. And you trying to make changes or do anything with them because we haven't had a very good rapport. You may have improved it somewhat in the last couple of decades, but that's still a main problem. That's the number one thing that I have to say. The number two is I've been aware of parking problems and so forth, having done some business and had to provide parking that nobody ever uses that's off the main street in that mall. In the mall, we had to provide all those parking spaces, and how many of them are filled right now, were filled in the summertime. How many people would park back there and walk to the businesses? We need to protect the businesses, the small businesses in this town. Yes, we need to plan for growth, but they're the lifeblood of this town. That happens in 6 weeks to 10 weeks, 12 weeks at the most.
Yep.
Isn't that your income? 75%
3 months.
of your,
No, that's not true. It's more than that.
and the businesses in this town need to have an input and need to be listened to and need to be considered when you're doing this.
So I have two things, I'll be brief. Number one, I just want to refute you, yes, we did lose business because of lack of parking. Over the summer, record here, nowhere to park on the east end of town, nowhere. And number two, you might not have gotten to this yet, and if you haven't, just let me know. I'm a little disappointed about the lack of planning on the east of town, as far as lighting goes. People coming in this time of year at night. So the proposed crosswalks I know will slow down daytime traffic, that's totally true.
There is also.
And I think it's a great idea. I think I'm a pedestrian a lot and I would like it to be safer to cross the street. I jaywalk all the time, I readily admit that. But the east end of town, coming into town at night, this time of year specifically, until about the middle of April, until it starts to brighten up again, is a real problem. A real problem. And I know that you've had some trouble getting a hold of Montana Department of Transportation.
We have a meeting scheduled.
You do, finally? That's good. Because we got kind of a nasty gram back from them, and we can talk about it later if you want to.
So we again, to address your comments, we talk about it ad nauseum and crap, but recognize you got a problem there, particularly with the daters. So it's up to MDT to address it. We're recommending they do temporary rumble strips further south to see if the noise is too much for people. Rumble strips work. They absolutely work. Lights could be one of those issues, of flashing lights. I think all we are is the conduit to say MDT needs to address it. It's a safety issue. We've heard it not just from you, we've heard it from everybody. So we are bringing that up.
I think it would behoove us to put it in the master plan.
It is. It is.
To have.
And there's a gateway that is in the master plan that we want to try to do
That's not very
to. No, you're right. It doesn't have to be a gateway. It just has to be like, you don't want edges in town, so people can be like, oh, I'm entering a town.
Right, but by that gets to it, and then it's too late. And then they have to be slowed down at the 45, otherwise. But that, I mean, that's a different conversation with content. And I'm happy to sit down with you. We have data, I mean, we had semis 4 inches away from my office desk
I saw
before.
the one on its side. I saw the photo last time.
Marie?
Some clarifications. Granted, tonight you're only addressing the downtown street improvement area, the roundabout and east. Are you going to pledge to hold workshops on the balance of the master plan? What I heard Jason say was, we've already bought into that, so clearly we're not talking about it tonight. But are you not interested in input from the taxpayers on the rest of the plan?
You want me to speak to these? So we're on the hook for producing a draft document that will go to you and it will go to the public at the same time, and it'll be on the website for anybody to take a look at. So you'll be able to comment on everything that's in the master.
That's all I want to know. Secondly, when Becky Viovich was mayor, she came to the school. We gladly agreed to her suggestion that this north parking lot be available during the summer from the day school let out until the day school started again in the fall. The town provided signs that would go up at that time and come down at the end of the season. We had a legal contract. It happened 1 year. Nobody, and it worked. Nobody ever followed through. RVs, trucks, cars, anybody could park up there, but the longer vehicles were encouraged to park there. There's part of something that's available right now, well, not while school is on, but in this current time. It happened one season.
I think it did happen more than that, because it was initiated and we did renew the contract
Until
with the school.
2018.
And I think in the draft plan, which this is just that one streetscape, it does talk about tangible items that we can do in the immediate future. For instance, that and wayfinding, and so people can find the parking lot behind the library, or say, hey, you can park on, would it be, I guess, 3rd Street, and it's, 2 minutes to get an ice cream cone at Viney's or the pharmacy. And there are gonna be some tangible things that we can do right away.
Last Friday, we had the 100th Street. I drove from 1st Street, down Stephens, down to Kalina's. Nobody had any trouble finding parking on those streets. They're paved.
There's lots of
They're
people
already parking there. So it's not like people aren't using that same area that you're designating for parking now. Lastly, you talk about unpaved streets. The only one I recognize is the one behind Ennis Cafe. Where are these other unpaved streets?
Those are all paved.
Streets are.
Yeah, the streets are paved. It's the one behind, and then on 1st Street, those are paved, but they don't have, just like Main Street, it doesn't have stormwater.
No, it doesn't.
Drainage and stuff like that. And I think, with Hunter's Feed, it's a lot of local folks as well. It just helps them create that signage or what they call wayfinding to say, hey, park here, and then you can move around. And it helps to have pedestrian walkways. So when you have folks that have mobility issues or whatever, because right now, along the corridor where the IGA came down along that street, no one with mobility issues is gonna park there and even go to the gravel bar, because, and even though it's a short distance that they can make, it's really the sidewalk is uneven, the pavement's uneven and whatever, and so we need to, and that's one of the things we really strive to look at, is active communities, and because of our population, in 10 years, it's gonna be 65%, 65 and older. And so.
It already is 50.
And so the way that we're currently with the drainage in front in the wintertime is atrocious.
The drainage in front in the wintertime is frozen.
Exactly.
It's in the spring when it thaws, that's the problem.
I think it's
Not
all
in the
times
winter,
here,
'cause
because if
it's
you
not
slip
gonna
and
thaw.
fall on that ice, it's, so.
How
those
is
are
the
things-
ice gonna melt? You gonna put heat in there?
Well, no, so what you would have is drainage, so the water doesn't pool to begin with.
Subsurface drainage.
So you would do a stormwater system.
Have you cored it yet?
I'm
How
sorry.
do you melt the ice?
Properties down in town?
No, this is
You're
just
gonna
a,
dig wells is what you're doing as soon as you hit that water.
so this is just a conceptual plan. This
No,
is
I'm
just,
asking.
no, this is just a conceptual,
that
all
water
those
comes from the
processes
river.
would have to be completed before any of this would happen. This is us
Absolutely.
coming together as a community and saying, this is the public process. And the reason you haven't seen it is because there was the public meetings that they had, this is all a couple of times new to us. They went and gathered information and they said, based on what we've heard, this is something you can do. It can be tweaked. Nothing is set in stone. And so, if we don't do anything, we're making a decision. And there are communities that haven't done anything. Take, for instance, Belgrade. I lived in Belgrade in the late 90s, and they didn't do anything. And now they have a problem that they're trying to go back. Belgrade, with its whole population, can't maintain a 2-block Main Street. The lounge is closed down, for the love of God. Like, how does that happen? And so, just trying to be thinking things in the future. And so in the 1996 plan, and I talked to the folks, I read the names on the plan, and I talked to a few of those folks and said, why didn't you go for the roundabout? What was the option there? And they, had concerns about it. Like Wayne said, it was gonna be the first one in the state of Montana, and so they weren't ready for that. And that's fair. But the solution that they came up with is a compromise that we've now grown out of. And in this corridor, they were very cognizant of the parking issues. Trust me, I told them.
And our deliveries and our charge.
Yeah, and this isn't all set, ready to go. Like you have to have some kind of organized approach because, okay, pulling out of your parking lot, making a left to go north.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's impossible. So how do we make it better? How do we service this so it works for your clients, so it's safer for them? So after they get their pound of jerky, they're not T-bone trying to go back to where they came.
They're gonna go back that way. Or where's that road gonna go? Through my parking lot? Through my corner property?
So
Or you
this,
gonna-
so they.
Yeah.
Dead end.
Is it-
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a dead end?
Yes.
So this is 2 lanes, so they would come out where they came in, right here.
And what
So
if
this
they wanna
is
come out of
2
my
lanes.
store and go to Virginia City?
So if they wanna go to Virginia City, they're gonna come out here, go through the roundabout
Oh
and back out.
God, that looks really convenient.
Well, could we rework the roundabout? I mean, could we
Yes.
do a 2-lane roundabout that, could we, I mean, could we just-
You could do a 2-lane roundabout, they're harder to navigate.
Right, yeah, right.
I mean, but we could
But to
work
what you're
on
saying,
this.
there's options. It's
Yeah.
not just set in stone. There are options for that.
Okay, I've worked on road issues in the Madison Valley 3 or 4 times. You're not addressing a couple of really important things before you can even consider that roundabout and stuff. And you probably have thought about it, and I know you're gonna meet with MDOT, but they have threatened a number of times, if certain things were happening in town, they would jerk away all the parallel parking. So that's issue number 1, and they aren't kidding. I mean diagonal parking. The second thing is, this is the only other northern route on the highway system for hazardous materials. The only one. The other is I-15, and we all know how the truckers like that. The truckers don't exactly have a very good reputation for getting through town from the south. And the reason is because they won't slow down. They're doing better now that they re-signed that whole thing out there. But I talked to Bill Fogarty up there about re-signing and getting all that slowed down up there. The reason why there has not been an accident with the trucker coming through town on the north side is they have to stop. They have to stop. And you better be careful what you wish for. I cannot believe that MDOT is going to approve a roundabout on a state highway with hazardous materials and all that. And next to an elementary school. And I need to collect my thoughts. The parallel parking or the diagonal parking in town, those truckers know that's happening. And that in itself makes them slow down. Has there been an accident between a truck and somebody pulling out, backing out onto the highway there, right through town? No, there has not. The only accidents have happened are on the south end of town where they don't have to stop. So you've got hazardous materials. That roundabout is going to have to be gargantuan for those big trucks. You have to take into account the weight distribution on the trucks. They're top heavy. What about a cattle truck going through there on icy roads down a hill, and now you're going to tear the hill down? I mean, that's the elephant in the room that I think needs to get sorted with MDOT to start with. And your little raised pads to slow them down, do you really think they're going to let that happen in the middle of Main Street on their highway?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, there you go, and that's it. The rumble strips, the reason why they don't have rumble strips is because people call it noisy. The reason why they don't have flashing lights is because they're optically noisy. So, some compromises will have to be made, but you're putting the cart before the horse, I'm telling you. And you've got some serious, serious issues with the roundabout and the hazardous materials. And I don't see any end in the near or even distant future to hazardous materials going through Ennis. So if they have to stop, everybody has to stop. And it by nature slows traffic down going through town. The main thing you could do is make town Main Street slower. And you could talk to MDOT about that, but I think you better be careful where you're going with this.
Bravo. You bring up some great points.
They're critical points.
Yeah. This is a long-term master plan. I don't own the property, you don't own the property, MDT owns it. They need to hear from you guys as far as if you want to do something different. If I were to guess tonight, you don't want to do anything different.
We don't want it.
We don't need anything.
So, and again, that's up to you.
I think 70 years ago, we had a big meeting at the school. Does everybody remember?
Yeah, that was 2006
Do you remember
or
when
2006.
the deer are exploding on the road and the MDTO, the Montana Department of Transportation, simply said this: watch what you guys are wishing for, because we can't bypass your town. And if you look what happens in Montana, when they bypass towns, they die. So watch what we're pushing, because the MDOT is not gonna put up with this.
And I think that was when, so Jim Lynch was, at the time, was the MDT director. And you know what Jim Lynch did before he was the director of MDT? He owned a trucking company. And so, and I think it was Vern Sundahl that walked out in a huff and was like, what do you mean? I'm not sure who the director is now, but after that was Mike Toohey. And, Nani is right. They did say like, oh, there was a time, and things change with MDT. It's a huge organization. It's like a ship, so it does take time. So there was a time when they were like,
Politics.
no angled parking, we were only putting in parallel parking, whatever. Now they've adapted some of those policies within their organization, and they're hearing from communities. Because what Wayne said is right, traffic engineers, they only want to work with traffic and make it fast. And then all of a sudden, they realize that we're moving people too. And people spend money, not cars. And we have to figure out a way to get this. So that's where Wayne is saying, start the conversation with MDT early.
But don't piss them off.
Well, exactly.
Please.
So, and that's why when we had a workshop, I believe Sherry Shows was there. We had Mark Fenton come. We invited MDT and said, please come on down to keep them in the loop of what is wanting. And there's different communities, Glasgow, Sydney, some of those, other cities that are other communities that have taken on these types of projects. And our biggest point of this master plan, the biggest point is to
Kill the
preserve.
businesses.
No, it's not. It's to
Yes, it
preserve.
is.
Stop. It is to preserve our unique Western heritage so our businesses can be successful. That's how we all want to be successful, to be safe, to be happy and to be healthy, have a great community to raise our kids, and where they can travel down the street to Main Street with their grandparents, taking them to their library.
But they don't need a 12-foot sidewalk to
That's
do
what I
it.
was
But
going to
actually,
say. Who
hang
needs a
on.
12-foot sidewalk?
So those things actually make a community easier to travel and for people to spend money. So your 75-year-old can have furniture to sit out, and they can sit out and on a bench under a tree waiting for their partner in a store. It makes it more comfortable, and when people are more comfortable, they utilize those businesses.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Why was there no business owner or person that owns a business downtown at these planning meetings of telling you what we need?
You were invited,
We were?
multiple times. Yeah.
Who invited me?
It was
I
on the
work in
website,
business.
it was, and I paid personally for ads in the paper.
Why didn't you walk down Main Street and introduce
And
yourself?
We did that,
We did,
actually.
Nora
we
did that, and she did it on.
She never met anybody. She's in
No,
a business.
I don't know, we did
7
that
days
I'm a
during
business
during
owner.
the summer.
She did do that memorial.
Stacy, were you?
No, I'm gonna say, and you guys know, come on, I am there every day.
Yep.
Nora was there.
We did it. We
She
did.
did do that. We did have a
Shocking.
steering committee of 9
Sorry,
members
we did.
in the community that were were part of businesses. We had nine members from the community.
And can I ask a question, and I'm probably gonna take them wrong? How many of those members are new to this community?
Yeah.
How many have
I've
we
lived
did
here
not-
for years, and I'm one of them that Nora did come introduce herself. I talked to her at great length.
Can I ask who Nora is?
Nora's the other, she was part of the team
She's a
that worked
junior
on.
planner. who works
She's
for
a
us.
junior planner that worked on
Okay,
this.
I mean, I'm
And she's
not
the
trying
one-
to be rude, but.
No, and that's just.
I am there most days from 5:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
And maybe she talked to one of your staff members too, that was there.
Yeah.
I'm not being rude, but.
Yeah, no, and I understand, but there were. Exactly.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Call on somebody else here. Sit down.
One other thing that I see, I know you guys have all kinds of complaints in the wintertime about snow piles. With a narrower street and a wider sidewalk, where are the snow piles gonna go?
Amen.
Good point.
Hopefully not pushed under the side of the road. Hopefully the MDT would be able to address that.
So there is
And
no plan.
There are
no plan.
rollouts.
There is no plan for the
center.
Where is the DOT gonna go with the snow?
So MDT.
Who's gonna pay for it?
Let's dump it in the
That,
river.
that also can go back
So
to,
have-
we might not do the part of it, but also it does actually make the driving part of the road wider.
You're
It gives
talking
less
to a
storage.
slow power right now.
It
I
gives
know.
less storage.
Okay, well, we're actually making both lanes, they will be wider, the driving portion would be, is that correct, Wayne?
Yes, the lanes would be wider. The actual lanes would be wider than they are
Yeah, 'cause we don't have
When
any
you
parking.
take the snow off that driving lane, where do you go with it?
I just
Where do you
pointed
put it
out.
now?
Because, you take the sidewalk, you extend it wider, that gives less room for snow to be stored until they can get rid of it.
I just
So
pointed it
there's
out
more
as
parking
areas that you
spots.
Don't have now.
That are not. And you can't put them on an intersection because then you have a sight visibility problem. The traffic coming down those streets. if you
The same
take
places they put,
there,
the
they
same
can't
places they would put snow right now would still be there. Like by the Y, by Shedhorn, the same places they put snow. But now there would be drains for when the snow melts. It goes somewhere. Watch the snow this winter. I really watch the snow this winter.
That's
Christie
Commissioner,
Ransom.
Commissioner Christie Ransom.
So for
I'm
just
sorry, I'm
this
at home.
section, it would be the same thing. But like right here, you would be able to plow the snow on these green spots where it would then, in some days it would be able to melt and soak into the ground instead of going into the road and cooling up. But, on Main Street, like I said, it could stay angle-in parking, but then if it did go to parallel parking, like I said before, the street actually is now wider, and you're still gonna have the same spots you can plow the snow, but then you'll have these green spaces where it could melt.
Right when it's
And that-
also.
It's a concept, but.
And the
you
Y
put it
up
where
by
you
the
put it now.
Forest Service is actually MDT property.
How long have you lived here?
So,
Good.
Has he ever been through Bozeman after it
I'll
snows?
get you next.
The side streets in
I'll get you
Bozeman, the plowed up, piled up snow?
Pretty middle town.
well, we don't get as much snow as Bozeman. We don't get as much snow as West Yellowstone either.
We're
So
not living in West Yellowstone.
That's your point.
that's my point, is that we don't have the annual snowfall that those communities do have.
But he wants to put the plowed
Sir,
up snow right there.
I have a silly question here. Why are we conversing over this when you haven't been working, or we should be talking about the infrastructure downtown, the water problem for the city, the sewer problem, and there's a lot of these houses going up. Where are they getting the water from?
And we addressed that a little bit earlier, but I will go back to it again. We are currently seeking another water source for a third well to help that. And as the town grows, we've got a very big potential development that could come with the riverside, up over this way. And we will have to seek new water and have them help us seek water as part of them building that. So we'll be seeking that, and we will always be looking to upgrade the lagoons
Okay.
and the water system.
You've already got the
Always,
money
every
so-
town has
you've
to
got
do
money
that.
sources for this?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're doing a preliminary engineering report on not just the hydrogeological report that they're talking about to find a third well, but we're also doing a preliminary engineering report for the water system and the sewer system. And, we have a fair amount of money, not necessarily to do all the repairs, but definitely more than enough to do.
Do you have a timeline on this?
As fast as it can, yeah.
Huh?
As fast as it can happen, yes.
They're doing the
engineers are on
hydrological
board
study
right
now.
Well, I
Engineers are on
understand
board
that.
right now.
Yeah, well, we've heard that before.
What's it gonna cost to acquire all that other land if you wanna put parking spaces on?
Please wait until your hand's raised.
What about,
You do the same.
stormwater management plan? What do you guys have in place for stormwater management on Main Street? Because
You don't have a stormwater management.
I know we don't. I'm asking, what do you have in place for stormwater management? Because paving everything in
It's not a part
town.
of our scope, but I will tell you, it is a problem. You have
It
a
is.
stormwater problem.
Yeah,
And we're
because paving everything
recommending.
in town, the town's vision is to pave everything.
No.
And all that
No,
water
not at all.
flows.
You're
It
missing
is,
the point.
because I have a TND that says I'm supposed to pave parking lots at Willie's. So you guys don't have a stormwater management in place, all that pollution runs right into the Madison River. It's gonna paving
that
everything
is
in
part of the
town.
master plan to develop one of those.
And that's
You
something
need-
we
you
would
need
have to work
water
with
separators, you
MDT.
need catchment ponds.
Absolutely, that is part of the master plan. This is just the streetscape.
You're talking about
portion.
other infrastructure, so
Yeah,
I'm interested in
absolutely.
stormwater management because I'm worried about that river.
And wouldn't that be a priority over the?
Okay, hold on. Raise your hand if you want to speak.
I just had a quick question, and I might have missed it, sorry for being late, but, I heard Robin mention it, and it was one of my main concerns too. The south of town with the cars not slowing with the stop sign, we see deer head, we see trucks running into stuff down there, all kinds of stuff, like, that's an issue, and I actually mentioned this to Lisa earlier. Does that not, keeping that traffic continuously flowing in through the roundabout, I mean, that crosswalk already on the north end of town at night is horrendous. You can, even with the flashing lights, you can barely see people crossing it, I mean, I guess my question would be, safety wise, do we think that keeping that traffic going and not having those people thinking of, already gradually braking to that stop sign, like, how much do we gain by speeding that traffic up by sacrificing safety? I don't know if that's even a concept or if that's a thing to address or what.
You've been driven on a roundabout before, you obviously have to slow down to go. You
Yeah.
can't maintain your speed that way, and it stops congestion coming from that side. So, I mean, and it's still something we can look at and go through that way. And one thing that I want to speak to just a little bit, it's a little bit off topic, but we keep coming to the south end. I forget, help me out with the time frame. People came here, or a group of the people came here and were screaming about the dark skies. We want dark skies. Lighting on this, I'm not sure if you go into Wyoming. Wyoming is a perfect example of this. In every town, they have lights like an airport runway on both ends of the town, which would, I think, do that. They have the rumble strips. It's going to have to be, the community's going to have to give a little bit to be able to fix and be able to do any of these things, because you can't have both ways. You can't have dark skies and then have safety. You can't have no noise and not have rumble strips. There's got to be a compromise from the community as well as us to do these things. But when we try to do a lot of these things, the dark skies is a huge thing. We had 60 people here yelling about dark skies, and we're upset because we wanted to do something. But to do that, we're going to eliminate dark skies. But we will have safety. So the community needs to decide what they want from the council. The council is more than willing to help get where we need to go, but if there's not compromise on the other side, we can't help you get where you need to go.
Okay, that was where I wanted to go back to, was the rumble strips. Where you're talking about doing the rumble strips, if I understand it, it would look like when we come out from the Harrison, when we do the Cardwell, and we're gonna get onto the main road there. They have rumble strips, they're out there. We don't have a lot of residents where those rumble strips are gonna go. And like you say, we're gonna have to compromise something and what about, the how fast you're going thing that's gonna be there, rumble strips ahead of it, because we've had some major problems, we realize. And I know, one of our dear members that isn't with us anymore, said when they got the street light in Ennis, he was out of here, but anyway, I would favor a stop sign. Street lights you're gonna have I just came from Sydney, Montana, and my kids have floodlights on their implement dealership all night long. I mean, safety, vandalism, whatever. But I personally would stomach a stoplight to stop the traffic, to slow it down, a lot better than I could go for that huge, big roundabout.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the questions I had about the big trucks coming through town, is there any regulation on those at all, or is it just
The federal highway.
the federal highway?
Yeah.
I think there's something, I mean, just watching that, I've been living on Main Street for 3 years now. My bedroom is 20 yards off the street. I watch it all the time, and yeah, there's gonna be an accident one day, there's no doubt about that. But, you know, sometimes the traffic's heavy, sometimes it gets heavy at night. It's almost like maybe the companies are regulating that, or, you know, like the Talk Mine, they come through usually at night instead of during the day.
So your hazardous waste.
Well, right. So my question would be, the DOT, they don't regulate that at all? Like a small town, like on the weekend, don't, you know?
No, they don't, and I think I know Nani's worked on that with, working with MDT on 287, they got the weigh station.
Right.
One of the things that could be worked on is to encourage MDT to keep that man the weigh station.
That would cost us nothing.
Yeah, so that will
Right.
cost us nothing, is to advocate for that.
I mean,
that
trucking's important and all, but there's certain times where, you know, they're coming through that, I mean.
They're coming through
They're running quick.
And that's why.
I mean, I've seen them come through 40 miles an hour.
Yeah, and especially at night, and that is where, like, in the plan, it does also call for lighting on those and an archway into there, but a combination, so we could try out the rumble strips. The noise, we gotta remember that is the river corridor, so sound is gonna travel, so.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of noise, a lot of dust, a lot of dirt, you know, that
So
kind
we
of
gotta
thing. But
see.
it's only gonna get worse too.
Yeah, and we can try those out, I mean, because I think there are sample rumble strips that you can put down temporarily.
Well, I'm not talking about rumble strips, I'm talking about times they come through.
Yeah, well, and I think the biggest thing that we can do is advocate for MDT to man the weigh station.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, is for them to man the weigh station and to reduce traffic, because trucking is all about timing, and if they have to stop for a weigh station, but if they could keep going on I-15, maybe they would do that, I don't know. And so, but yeah, that's been a complex issue for
When that
20
weigh
years.
station's open, you can see the truck line.
The problem is with the trucking, I used to be married to a truck driver, so other state. And what I want to tell you is that a lot of those guys, especially the ones that were running down the Gallatin Canyon, they are overloaded. A lot of them are overloaded. They run two day books, two truck monitors. And the reason why they come through at night is because they can go through town.
Well, if I was a truck driver, I'd go through at night, because I'd say from 11 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning, it's empty.
That's right.
It's empty.
That's
I mean,
right. And
makes
a lot
sense.
of times the weigh stations aren't open then, and they can drive right by them. When the weigh
Right.
stations open up there, or they monitor it part-time, there's hard facts that a lot of the truckers just pull into by Cameron there at the Blue Moon Saloon or that parking lot right there and wait until they close and then they run through. And there's no way to slow them down or monitor them. And going back, way back when Jim Lynch was in the head of the Department of Transportation, when we were talking about doing something about 84 over to Bozeman and the trucks running through there, I said to him, what are you going to do? I mean, isn't there any way you can monitor the trucks through there, especially in the summer when the bikini hatch is on? Isn't there any way you can monitor them? Or do we just have to wait till somebody gets killed in there? And he said, that's what will have to happen.
Well, I think Butte does this. They regulate by time, even times of day and stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you,
No, we're not
trucking
Butte.
is a touchy
Right.
subject.
Anyway.
Yeah, we're getting a little off topic, but we know that it's a concern, and that is one of the issues that we did want to address, and we'll have to try some things out. They'll have to be.
I gotta talk to MDT.
Of course we do,
Not
and that's why
ducks
we're
in a
bringing
row,
to the,
right up
bring
front.
them into the conversation first.
Okay, stop. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Kyle Stone, Ennis resident, speaking as an Ennis resident tonight. I've spent my whole career in transportation projects and public sector infrastructure projects, and I'm just going to get back to the design as you guys work through this planning committee. A couple things that came to mind for me is, do the parking lots, these parking lots on the outside of town, will people really use them? And so that was my big question. Another question I had was, if I'm coming south or north from town, I'm always thinking about traffic patterns, because it always looks good on paper, but seeing how people use it, if I'm going to Shedhorn or Nacho Mama's, what's the traffic pattern for somebody to get to Nacho Mama's or Shedhorn? Can you point that out?
Well, you're either gonna come around.
That's a one way, you just said that was, can you turn in there?
You can turn in here.
Yeah.
But you can't go to.
This is a one.
Okay, you can't park at Shedhorn or Nacho
You
Mama's.
can come up this way and turn
Come
in,
down.
and that's where wayfinding will, having signage is gonna be critical.
So there's a potential that people could turn down First Street,
Yes.
go back by the school, all the
They
way.
can turn
around.
down First Street if they can't park here. Then they go around and come through.
Okay, so I'm not, just maybe consider those things and how the traffic patterns, now you're gonna have cars going back into the neighborhood to come all the way around. When before they could come through.
Go around the roundabout and come back.
Well, okay, so they have to go around town pump or around the roundabout and come back in. People
No,
might,
they could turn right.
people might just be
Here.
like, you know what, I'm gonna keep on going. I'm not gonna look
They
back.
can turn in here.
How do you go to Shedhorn now?
I'm not here to debate it with you, I'm just saying.
I go right.
Your traffic patterns are changing based on what you guys have, so consider that in your plans.
Understood.
The other thing, thinking about your roundabout here, you guys want to add a parking lot there to the south of the roundabout. And in the plan, it talked about, it was for summer use and that it was a summer overflow lot. And even now in the summer, I really don't see people using the school parking lot. I mean, you see some trailers pull in there every once in a while and they walk to Sugar.
In and out of.
They walk over to Sugar High from there. That's really where people are going on that upper spot up by the roundabout. So maybe it's something to consider is and I'm not supporting, I don't really know one way or another. I don't have a business or anything at stake here. But maybe it's best to take that south lot and push it to the west where it's in front of Demos and it's in front of Sugar High because that's where your summer people are going in the summertime.
I mean, this
Over here.
Right, because you already have parking on that
So
side
you're
of the
saying
roundabout.
to push the roundabout south. and
Right.
then-
Lisa, is that where the gravel parking lot is? That's not the actual school parking lot, is it?
Yeah, no, that's where that gravel parking lot would.
Okay.
All I'm saying is on the south side of that roundabout, you would already have parking and that's the school. What you don't have is parking in front of Demos and Sugar High.
It's possible, yeah.
So, and that's where everybody goes in the summer, right?
Yeah.
At that part of town. So why not help out Demos and help out into Sugar High with their tight parking already? And I mean, I feel for the business owners there, like, man, that little entry road. So maybe it's best
No,
that
that's a good
there's an
suggestion.
adjustment to there.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I had is I've heard it a lot is like, a lot of these I'm not gonna call them commitments, but a lot of the things in the plan require a private owner to sell the property and it doesn't sound like there may be a few owners that are in and willing to potentially do that, but there's a lot of them probably that aren't. And it's gonna cost millions to be able to purchase all this land, and all of them have to go along with this plan. So I think there's a lot of roadblocks in this plan that you might spend all your money just trying to get this property, let alone pushing it out the door.
It's a long-term play.
Well, 15 years isn't that long to me when you're thinking about transportation projects. I mean, it's gonna take 3 years to build this or 2 years to build this.
So every master plan that I've ever done, looks at options that are outside of what the immediate capabilities are. That's what this is a long-term master plan. It's not intended to, I'm not saying we need to go down and take Roy's property today. Not at all. If you get a willing seller or a willing donor or a willing participant in some ways, that in a lot of communities, this sparks invention in people in the private sector's mind of how could I actually do that and make it work for me. So that's all this is.
Yeah, I just asked that that's considered as you guys move through.
When I look at this, I don't see those parking lots that are private, like, actually being there. That's just an option that possibly.
It's like it's a main roadblock to even be able to do parallel parking in downtown, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because this whole project can't go unless you have parking. I've heard that already, right? I mean, you can't turn it into parallel parking without getting a lot to begin with, right?
Adding additional parking.
You could, but I would recommend, I would think it would be scanned.
Go ahead. My question is,
kind of involving roundabout based on what you said, potentially pushing it south. I know the schools working towards redesigning and growing. Have you coordinated with them or discussed any of this with them as you presented this plan to the town council?
Yeah, we talked to them. We haven't talked to them about the use of this parking lot. This one's already there. It's just saying, okay, probably could be better, delivered. Actually, I don't even think that one's paved. But no, I think, again, if there's nothing that's happened with this whole process, it seems to be a better relationship with the town and the school district. So ultimately, I think, yeah, you have to deal with. Let me also point out, the last master plan that we made the presentation was the same night that there was a presentation going on at the school. So the school wasn't able to come to our public meeting, but they were here the night that I presented this to the council.
There was members.
Yeah, members
of the school board. You haven't officially presented this to the school board.
No,
Because it's still a draft.
Yeah, I know, but there is a lot of commitments in there that talk about shared use of the school property.
Yeah. And that's where we would have to either, acquire or, work with the school in some capacity. And it's all these partnerships, whether they be agency to agency or public, private, and so, and that was just what the planners came up with so that is really good feedback on, that parking lot there.
Any other questions?
Not really a question, just Lisa, you mentioned, I think all of us can appreciate, we do live in this small little western town. It's one of the things why everybody comes here.
Yeah.
And I truly feel, and clearly it sounds like people might be leaning away from it up here at this table. Having parallel parking would probably deter people from stopping and shopping, eating. I know it would deter a lot of locals. You're trying to parallel park on Main Street when you have semis coming through. I avoid downtown Bozeman like the plague. And I grew up in Northern California. At 16 years old, I had to parallel park. I can do it. But a lot of people around here don't do that and haven't had to. So it's just gonna be a bottleneck. That's my 2 cents.
Another one of my concerns, and nobody's mentioned this, and I as well, is when you mentioned you put your vote to zero sign. If there were 2 spaces open on Main Street and you're pulling your vote sign, you would probably take up both of those spaces.
It's better than the 3 that I take up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday on the
When
floor
nobody's
and
parked.
when nobody's there, yeah.
Right, when nobody's parked.
But Donald still you
So.
Yeah.
But my point is that 100 parking spaces will soon dwindle to 75 and then 50 because of the trailers and everything behind them. That's my main concern. Another concern is the little jog out dealies that you've got there that accommodate for the crosswalks, which visually are nice, but from a snowplow standpoint, I imagine that would be just a nightmare. Like, I don't know how they'd be able to just go around and then plow around. We're gonna lose a lot of that.
So what could happen is a agency, because they have certain ones, I think it's in Sydney, they have those as well. And, it could be up to Town of Public Works to clear those areas.
Sure.
In
Now
there.
Montana Department of Transportation does it, so why would we spend additional money that we don't have to when the Department of Transportation is already doing it for us?
Well, because we could be creating a safer space for pedestrians to walk and to utilize those
But then the
businesses.
proposal is to dump all the snow and the crosswalks, which is.
No.
Sense to me.
In the grass areas.
You're right.
So you get some snow for sure. I'll go back to Spruce Grove, Alberta. They
so
get
right-
a heck of a lot more.
Right, so right now, all the snow is across from our business.
They dump it in the crosswalk.
Right in the middle of the crosswalk, which is, whatever, it is what it is. It's not our favorite thing, but we know that we can't really do anything about it, so we just kind of roll around and move with it. But the biggest problem is that it's really, really dangerous to pull out, onto onto the street with that giant thing.
And I think that's where our conversations with MDT
Yeah.
go, because they pile all that with big front loaders and stuff. So why can't they
Straight
take it?
up to the
Yeah,
line.
so what, and they do come in and move it, so they have the triangle piece that's between the golf course and the Forest Service, right? There is that, they could, and that's even depressed, so they could actually store the snow there and move it there, so.
That would be
And I think those,
like this winter, it would be great.
It's actually a dip there, and it's over 2 acres, so they could actually put a lot of snow in there. And I think that's where the conversations happen with MDT on all those little items and say, hey, you've been.
So we've gotten almost nowhere with MDT. Hopefully the town's backing with Cushing Trail backing finally get somewhere on the town with that. Because it happens every other few years.
It does.
And it's somebody's gonna get hurt.
Well, and that's where having, Cushing Terrell has traffic engineers, so they can talk to the traffic engineers at MDT because they speak engineer.
So another thing that really got me thinking is Nadia, I believe the name is Nadia, is that right?
Nani.
Yeah, not Nani, is something it didn't even cross my mind that the reason we don't have crashes right here is because people have to stop.
Absolutely.
That, it never even crossed my mind, because I'm all in on roundabouts. I think they're great. I love them and I hate them, but once you get used to them, they're fine. But just that one comment that she made, that people are stopping there and they're forced to stop, and then this being a hazardous material thoroughfare, man, that gives me pause on that roundabout.
Agreed. And yeah, those are things that need to be considered and talk with engineers in it, but I will say, there was an accident there.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that
He ran the stop sign.
And he stemmed, and he went all the way through.
Because he received alarming news.
Yeah, and then he just kept on going. And there's additional things that we could do along this corridor. I know the lumberyard is very concerned about people coming off. And so I think a collective effort and to get traffic to slow down, because it doesn't turn to 25 until like right in here. And so we need to be working with MDT to slow down the traffic before then. And maybe it's a set of rumble strips out there. Maybe it's a set of rumble strips where the North 40 starts. And with lighting and other traffic calming measures along this corridor as you're coming in could be helpful as well. And that on, the southeastern side of town too, whether it be a combination of efforts to be done. And I think, one of the other things that could possibly be done is if the town were to annex in the fishing access, then that becomes town and we're allowed to lower the speed limit. Because right now, the speed limit doesn't change until you're already across the bridge. So if we were to annex those properties in, which should be fairly easy because it's a government entity, we could push the lower speed limit at least to across the bridge.
Where's the fishing exit?
The one the campground right across the river.
Okay.
The finish where the
So, and then the other thing, this 134 houses or whatever, that's not in the city limits, you evidently are looking to.
They're looking to annex in.
They're looking to annex in.
I believe they're on. Yeah.
Which needs to be very seriously considered with the amount of lots that are still to be filled in this town, need to have priority before we go to taking care of somebody that we don't have enough sewer and water for.
Well, now as part of the.
What do we have a current capacity for water and sewer in town?
I don't have the numbers right in
I
front of me.
can tell you, you have sewer, you have 524 lots as of April. And
Available
water, 274 lots.
So we have availability to hook up 520 additional hookups.
With capacity.
For the capacity for 520 more hookups, and then the 274 for water.
But you are looking.
So, and there, I believe that.
The water lagoon sewer system in this town is stellar. It has been taken care of very well, and we've never had a problem. We don't want to get
Exactly.
into that.
And that's what this process is to look at those things and have a timeline to look at those things and priorities. So no matter who is here, that this is a roadmap, whether it be talking about infrastructure, or these are the things, these are the tasks that we need to do, and that we need to look at them. Okay, we need to get once we hit this threshold of, 400 hookups, we need to be looking to what comes next. And to have, it's generally, I use the analogy that we're all on the bus together. As a community, we are all on this bus. And we want a roadmap that we all agreed on in our destination. And so no matter who's driving, because Sharon, these seats change all the time. The mayor, Blake is the first one, he's still gotta go to December, but he's the first one to fulfill the term in 3 mayors. And so that's what we were looking for, is a collaborative effort from the community. And this is just the streetscape. And Nora's issue was like, hey, this needs to be revisited because at the public meeting, this was the most controversial piece. We have to get out the sticky wickets. It's not going to be absolute, nothing is set in stone, but we just need that general, are we heading northeast? Are we heading southwest? Where are we going as a community? And if we don't do something, that's saying something. So it's better to have a plan. Maybe this is 20 years and it doesn't get realized because things happen or whatever, but you have a general direction of where you're going as a community. And one of the biggest things that we heard is to maintain our unique small town, but we have stormwater drainage issues that we need to address.
And the last master plan was how many years ago?
In 1996.
Okay.
So,
and it took how many years to get that one together? I remember it was 10 years. And so how long have you been working? I realize it fairly recently turned over to Wayne, but you've been working on this master plan for something like 4 years or whatever.
No, so we, so after there was, so with the Parklet project, that was a bomb. I'll take that full responsibility. It was a temporary solution. It was a tryout. So we said, that didn't work. So I'm like, okay, what do we do next as a community? So we're like, okay, well, we need a larger general plan because we haven't done one. We couldn't even find it in the office. I think Wayne and his staff found it at the county. And so that's when I, as a member, started working towards, and I talked with Headwaters, RC&D, I talked with other agencies, and they're like, you need a master plan. That's how you're gonna
you need a master plan to even get
exactly
money to
and
help
so
with
and that's where I went to work. I applied for Montana Main Street. I applied for other things. So the cost to the town was only 25% of the actual cost, which is probably really not the actual cost to his firm. But that's where we advocated for. I'm not perfect. Obviously the Parklet, that was a huge bomb. That's okay. It was a temporary thing to try something out before it was permanent. So that's where,
as a group, we need to understand that this, number one, this is some crucial things, but it's only one section of a master plan that really needs to be done. In the 90s is, it's really antiquated. How much more population do you think we have now than we had then?
It would be interesting to see the numbers, because the interesting thing about Ennis is this town limits are small, and a lot of the growth has happened outside, except for the North 40, because they actually annexed into town. I think the hospital district says that they service about a population of 3,500. Does that count? Is that just year-round residents? Because we all know it grows substantially in the summertime, and that's where it's hard to get hard, fast numbers, is based on our summertime residents.
So I can actually answer that question. When I worked for the Economic Development Council, we do those numbers. And this area balloons from about 1,000 residents year round to about 2,500 residents seasonally. And that has grown by, and I think your numbers back that up, it was like 18% or something like that.
Yeah,
Over
I can't
the past 2 years,
remember.
it's grown by an exponential amount just in the past 10 years. I mean, when we moved here in 2007, nobody lived here.
Except for us.
Right, we all right, exactly. And so, and now everybody wants to live here. So I, as a business owner and as somebody who owns property within the city limits, we desperately need a master plan. Like, we have to plan for this growth because it's coming whether or not we want it to come. And I think that there are some really, really solid, good plans in this master plan. And I'm glad that we're kind of fleshing this out tonight because this isn't one of the good ones. But I think that as a master plan itself, I think most of it's really good. And it addresses a lot of what we need as a town to grow in an intelligent manner.
Right, and it's a common thing that most, correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, lots of towns all over the United States do master plans.
Well, every town is supposed to.
Yeah.
You should have growth policy updated every 10 years, preferably every 5 years. We did it in 2014, so you're pretty good. But you don't have a true master plan that's reasonably updated.
And one reason, sorry to jump in here, one reason we need this master plan is this helps us secure funding down the road from state agencies and whatnot. If we don't have a master plan on the books, they don't give us money for these things. This is one of the big things to help secure funding, so it isn't just on the town of Ennis. We can get funding outside of here, similar to how we got paid for the master plan or any of these other things that way.
Yeah, in the summertime, how far north from the stop sign does traffic back up?
Depends on what
So it can go up back to Rocky Mountain.
Sometimes we have waiting 20 minutes to turn left.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah.
It seems to me, and I live here in the fall, but it seems to me that leaving it as a stop sign as opposed to a roundabout is a non-starter. The exponential growth that you referred to isn't gonna make it better. It's gonna make it worse. You have all these lots to develop, and they will be developed, and there'll be residents, and there'll be trips, and Wayne knows how many trips per household on average.
7 a day.
All right. Well, you can imagine then the traffic backing up to Ennis lumber. And you'll be gridlocked like the coast. So, thank you all for doing this work. It's important. Thank you.
Trevor.
Yeah, and, I just want to say too, like, again, I really agree with Robin. She took the words out of my mouth there. Structured growth, we've obviously talked about in council meetings and everything. We know it's coming. But I guess my question after listening to everyone in here, and I don't live in town, you guys are gonna have to deal with it directly. I don't own a business in town. But, I guess my question would be, we've heard a lot of concerns and stuff between the MDOT stuff, between safety, between, hazardous materials. So this is obviously our draft, our plan, but do we have sort of a compromise plan? I mean, we've heard, the cost, like going to buy Mr. Washburn's property for the lot down there, other stuff, paving stuff, groundwater, there would be more infrastructure. Do we have kind of, after this meeting, like kind of a scaled down plan to this one? Or where do we go from here, I guess would be my question. Like how do we constructively keep working on it?
But I think we can take pieces of each one of these and have the conversation as they come up. I'm not sure if you were here for the phases.
I might have missed it, so if I did.
No, it's all good, but it's a great question, but we can pick and choose as we're going. So if we go into phase one, like Jason was saying, we can look at each piece of that.
Yeah.
And we work through that. If maybe this doesn't come to be and we have to go somewhere else, that's always going to be in the conversation. And we're going to have the conversation.
So is like a stoplight and rumble strips like a consideration for scaling back? I know nobody wants the first stoplight in Madison County, but maybe we've grown to that. I mean, are there like, where do we work, like, where's the constellations here, I guess?
Well, and really in the end of this, it's what MDT will let us do.
Okay.
Yeah. Ultimately, that is the big deal, is what MDT will allow us to do. We built that relationship over the years.
Stakeholder has been great.
Yeah, and they've been amazing. When I got in here, we had no relationship with the MDT. They wouldn't even talk to most of us.
And that's where.
We have a question over here.
Oh, sorry.
I'm hiding. Just a few observations. It was brought to my attention, these rumble strips, I never really knew what they were, and they're in the Norris Pass. I've driven there for 5 years and never noticed them. I just drive right by them, and if it's in the winter, I never knew they were there until like 3 days ago. Just saying, but I never got in an accident.
You gotta be going real fast.
So I think she's got a very good point. One, if you're gonna slow down trucks, you need to stop them. And two, I've also lived in Missoula when they've rolled out roundabouts in the winter, and when the snow hits quickly before they have a chance to plow, with the curbs on the edge, it actually became a pretty dangerous situation. And I'd be concerned from the hazardous, the school and everything else, trucks coming in with our wind, a little bit of drift, what that might be with a bad truck at a bad time at 3 o'clock in the morning dumping itself. Just an observation. Until this was brought up, I was never a fan of the stoplight, but I'm kind of moving in that direction. And if you could annex out towards, the fishing access, slow it down there, do some sort of new lighting situation other than just a rumble strip, we could have a much bigger impact.
Yeah, and that's where it calls for like an archway entry area too.
That's
So.
too late. It has to start at 45. It has to start by the cemetery.
Yeah,
And
the farther
that's
back you push it.
again, that's working with MDT and starting those conversations early and saying, and if we can all work together towards a common goal, that's what MDT likes to see. And so if we can work out the issues and say, yes, as a community, this is what we would like to see, they are much more adaptable than they were 25 years ago. And I think because they learned that as an organization that they do need to listen to the communities that they're
I'd be curious how comfortable you are being on a hazardous truck route.
Not at all. We're not.
Yeah,
But it is.
I'm wondering why that is, why you're.
Because they won't let them go through the Galton anymore.
That's a Yellowstone on 191.
Yeah.
So they gotta rewrite
But they
it.
can't.
We have asked.
They won't force them to stay on 15.
We've asked them to, and they won't.
I don't know if we come together as a collaborative community and say,
Can you pass a town ordinance for that? Or is that still because it's
it's a
highway?
federal highway.
Because it's okay.
Yeah,
Well, it's a federal highway through Yellowstone.
I know.
That's-
And they did have, in Big Sky, and that short section between Big Sky, there is that section of Yellowstone National
Yeah.
Park before you get to West Yellowstone. There have been hazardous trucks to tip over there. So.
Hey, just a suggestion. So,
Raise your hand.
sorry, thanks, Blake. Communication is the biggest issue in this room. Again, master plans are needed. I'm not gonna say that they're not. None of us wanna see our little western cowtown turn into Bozeman, I will tell you that. But and this has gotten this council into trouble numerous times with the lack of communication. You have business owners, you should make it a point to touch every single business owner and bring them in. They're the people who matter the most in this whole thing. And they get, and create a group for them. If Stacy or Demo can't make it, then they don't come, but at least they know they have the opportunity to. You all have done a terrible job doing that, and that's why you're getting so much pushback. Lisa, it's true.
Well, I'm just gonna say that there were, so Nora, the junior planner, we gave her a list.
She didn't do a good job. It's clear. They're here.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Wasn't it steering?
Let me just tell you, we have gone out of our way to try to get people to come in.
Lori,
We have advertised it. I've spent money out of my
Lori,
own
did you
pocket
know?
Advertising in the.
Wasn't the steering committee supposed to do
Stacy,
that too though?
you didn't know? Okay, so it didn't work, sir. Okay, they're sitting in front of you. Okay, look, they're sitting in front of you. Now, I'm telling you, if you want to sell your plan, have a better plan to get the businesses involved. End of story.
And it's one of the
We
hardest
care
things
about
to
our town.
I understand that.
And I
understand
think
that.
that
I really take issue that we haven't gone out of our
Because
way to advertise this.
we had Nora.
It's not advertising, walk Main Street.
Yeah, and Nora did, we reached out to Marshall with the Chamber of Commerce several times. We had, and that's the reason we had 9 members on the steering committee too.
But you
is
should-
to get the word, each one of those folks could work with their networks.
They're sitting in this room in front of you telling you they didn't know. So what I'm saying is that plan didn't work. So, yeah.
Can I make a
And you can
suggestion?
get all of our emails. You can get our
Right,
emails.
can I
email
make a
us.
suggestion? We pay taxes here. You have our numbers. Call.
Exactly.
Get a hold of us owners. Because unlike everybody else, we're at our business. I sleep down that. My bar has been closed today because I was going to be here. Because I'm tired of the stuff getting done behind my back, but I'm in the community and thriving and helping the community. People come to my door for donations constantly. And I am just throwing my money out the door. I am part of this community.
Absolutely.
And we came together. Everybody's so hot because we came together. What are they doing now?
So part of the process, okay, so we need.
It'd be real simple, just text everybody.
Well,
Just
then here,
push a button, boom.
I have asked our IT department
So
several times for our agendas to have a mailing list. I don't know if you're on the county mailing list, that you get the agenda. I have asked that several times for our IT department. And
This
he
is
has
something
declined.
we're going to work on. I
So-
don't want to put together a newsletter, I hate the idea of that kind of
Do
thing.
a text.
But I'm like, we need somewhere on the town website for people to put their emails so that we can communicate quickly.
Yeah,
And they're going to the MTA. We get together once a year, once. Every month there is a meeting. We all get an email, every one of us, telling us what is going to be discussed.
Sure.
So if we don't want to watch the meeting, we don't want to watch a meeting. I'm going to tell you something right now. You want to watch an organization the governor is afraid to mess with? The Montana Tavern Association, a scary organization. But we're organized. That's why they're scared of us.
I fully agree with you, and that is why I have asked, because the county has the alert system, right, that you can sign up for. I would like to get something for that. We, as a council, we've asked for a new website. Those are things that we have asked for.
So let's work on that communication. Let's
Yes,
not
and
make it another year.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, because I
That's
love
why we
it.
all came here hot.
Yes, yeah.
That's
I
why we
completely
saw
understand.
this.
And I think we all communicated amongst ourselves better than I think you guys have done in the last year, as far as projects.
And that's what I was about to say, so that's
I'm
why I
gonna
was
stick
asking.
up for him a little bit. I can tell you that I worked that, what was it, the government,
Local government review.
the local government review, thank you. We sent out 485 surveys. We worked on it 18 months, sent out 485 surveys. We got 180 some back, okay? That was letting you all know. And so some.
Well, I didn't get it because I don't live in Ennis.
That's
And
what I was
I'm a
gonna-
business owner in Ennis,
That's
but
the
I
problem.
don't live in Ennis.
Exactly, if you live in
Right.
China
So-
Mountains, then you don't, you're not counted even though you
And
have a
that
business.
that is a hard part.
I personally never went around, but I wasn't tasked with that. I was under the impression that there was stuff being mailed out. I saw all the ads in the paper. People were talking about it. We gave names and phone numbers of just everybody we wanted to know. We recommended people on the steering committee that we thought would be good to get the word out and be like a mixture of every business in town.
I'm just saying the communication was bad, and therefore you got the hot.
And I'm surprised to hear that most of you guys didn't hear about this at all.
But I'm just saying that there's two sides to it. You see that there's a mistake. So you that's broken, fix it, and get on with it.
Let's
because
move on
you're
with the
gonna have to
plan,
do
the
it.
major plan.
And you haven't intentionally let them out.
Again, though, I truly think that the steering committee was a great idea and concept, and like, I know I keep coming back to that, but we've gone over it like 2 or 3 different city council meetings now in regards to like other issues also, not just this master plan. I mean, where is the disconnect there? Because, there's 9 people can spread a pretty wide net across the city, across the town, across the county, and that's what I was under the impression when they were first formed, that they were for. I mean, you get people, you got certain issues in here that we've gone over the months of different projects, things that fire people up, and you'll get 150 comments of just disinformation, slander, all kinds of stuff on Facebook, but you can't have one steering committee member, put a blast out to the public on Facebook. Go walk the street, 9 people. I mean, shotgun spread it. Each person take a business and, go visit. I mean, I can't harp on that enough. I know I've asked it a couple times tonight and not really gotten a definitive answer, but where's the disconnect with the steering committee? Are they not getting the input to put out, or are they just not getting out there doing steering stuff, for lack of better words, or because I feel like they could be a very useful tool here, and that's what they were meant to be.
We have a meeting every week. Usually have one person show up.
Okay. And that one person,
that
are
would
they
tell
on
you
an
that
email
somebody's
chain with
not
other
getting
meetings,
your
or
Yeah, I mean,
They're all
Yeah.
invited to the.
They're all invited,
bi-weekly meeting.
and again, all we can do, this is a common problem, I know you're upset.
Right, but I would
but
say
it's a
I'm
common
not
problem.
directing that at you. I'm trying to get everybody where we communicate.
You said you had 148 surveys, I want to hire you to send my surveys.
Yeah.
That's fine.
right, but I mean, if they're only going to town people, maybe.
They were good.
No, the survey was not set out.
Because we didn't get it. Like, you didn't get one of his people, and I didn't get one of them. So then,
I think Ginger sent out close to 700. It was available paper and digitally, and it was available at the library. We'll absolutely work on it. I would love to have a spot on our website that you can sign up for.
and not being crabby, but just curious,
No,
how would you go about,
Yeah.
how would you as a business owner go about getting on that mailing list, or how would you go about getting that survey?
Yeah.
And as we
I
said,
think
the business owners are the core.
And that's why I sent it out to the
business-
chamber.
Right.
And
a
I
lot
did,
of
and
your business owners are not.
exactly, and when Nora was getting she got a dismal response, even calling people and emailing them, they just, didn't respond to her. So it was suggested that she, do a survey, and so that's where we sent it out through the chamber, through Marshall, to reach all those businesses and said, hey, we know you're busy, you might not have time for a phone call, and we utilize the chamber to reach those businesses as well. So obviously that didn't happen, so maybe we can start an email list, maybe we can get one going tonight. I know our IT guy that wasn't a proponent of that because he was afraid of some cybersecurity, but the county seems to do it. They send out the agenda, and I like receiving that, and I think that's something.
To be fair, we get a lot of chamber emails that maybe don't pertain to certain things, so maybe you don't look at every,
Sure.
for me, maybe I didn't look at everyone, so maybe I need to go back and look at that as well.
Yeah, and I know the chamber.
If that's where it came from.
Yeah.
But maybe it's coming from the chamber, you're not thinking it's a town council meeting about the master plan.
Well, I think it was on several different platforms. It had its own website. It was in the paper, and so we just thought working with that. But obviously, it needs to, it's constant improvement.
And this isn't the end, this is still a draft, now that we know the problem, we have everybody in here now, and everybody's seeing this before it's actually going past the draft procedure.
Sherry.
So did the steering committee people volunteer to be on the steering committee? And if so, if they're not showing up for the meetings, then they're off.
Exactly.
Get somebody who wants
Well,
to.
and here's the thing, the town council, we put the folks on the steering committee, and we
Right.
took a step back because we wanted it to be community.
Which is what you should. So,
Right.
but if all they did was volunteer to be on it in name only, I mean, because obviously they're not getting out there.
Yeah, and I don't know that they had, the folks that had inquired with me, Nora sent up a little expectation list. I don't know that, that got, that everybody, these are the expectations.
Right.
Maybe that wasn't more clearly defined for them, because I don't want to throw them under the bus.
Oh, no, and I'm not either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying though, but if they then really want to get out there and get pull their sleeves up and get their boots dirty and go do the work and find out what people are thinking, then go sign up for it and find somebody who does want to do it.
And maybe our process for selecting that could have been more refined as well. Maybe we should have said, everybody submit a letter, and then chosen that way. I think there were folks that called in and said, I wanted to be on it, and I think there was 9 people that applied, and so we put 9 people on it,
I
so
mean,
that's
that's what I was saying,
yes.
like, even Nikki printed out like the website for the master plan and was just like spreading around the word of it, like helping people, you know, I mean, I think there's a lot of us that wanna help and like find a, you know, cohesive solution to this, but I just feel like there's this disconnect, and I can't harp on it enough, I'm glad Sherry touched on it too, of the steering committee. I mean, I'd be on it, I'm perfectly okay to do that. But even last time, you know, when we had the last meeting with Wayne here, which he, you know, we talked afterwards, had a great talk, tempers were settled, and I put a post on Facebook, and it got a lot of people that hadn't seen it, didn't know anything about it, and I spoke positively of, you know, hey, look at this plan, here's the website link to it. I mean, I just feel like this, we can't harp on it enough, and everyone's saying the same thing, that the steering committee could be invaluable. I just think we really need to utilize it, or maybe switch the members around, not even just for the master plan, just in general for getting council stuff out for everything.
One thing that we've come to find, and we actually picked this steering committee before, is for a great number of years, everything was directed, you had to live in town. And when we put together our zoning board of adjustments, we started cycling outside of that, and that's something that the future administrations are gonna have to do, as well as use people outside. For a long time, we would just pick from the pool that was within town, and I know that that's how we had to do it, or we
No, the
did do
steering
it.
committee members, there's actually out of
Did we
9
leave
of
some
them,
out?
only 3 of them live in town. The majority
Okay.
live outside of town.
But I know that that was a big problem, and then we got some great people to come to our zoning board, and that we need to continue using our pool outside of the town limits. So that's something.
And that's actually in the master plan to expand that area where we can pull and fill our boards that nobody wants to be on, or we can't find anybody to do it. But yeah, to expand it to the 1 mile radius instead of just within the tiny city limits.
That was the blue shaded in section outside of town on the master plan, right?
include
Yeah.
the
With
planning board,
respect to
you're supposed to have
contacting
some
the business
representation
owners,
within a mile
you
radius.
already have a database. Everybody has a business license. You know who they are. There's your database.
There's no email in our database right
Well,
now.
then
It will
you can
change.
build on it, because you're growing it.
Right.
It's
It will
something,
change, but
something
we do
that's
not have that right
necessary.
Yeah, which is why I think our mail, which is why then, yeah.
Could still be.
Because some people don't pick, yeah.
And
I think those are all really good suggestions to work upon.
Okay, my question goes to Wayne, and I guess Lisa, mostly Wayne. You did send out a survey, right?
Yeah, we did.
How many did you send that out to?
I have no idea.
Over 700.
Over
The paper
700,
said
and you had
700.
less than, you had like 118.
Yeah.
But the paper
don't
said
know.
Return it. So I know for a fact that I didn't return mine because it didn't have a date on it. But I went back through tonight and I looked at those questions, and I'm just curious as to how they pertain to this. Or anything that you're doing on the master plan. Because the
What's your
questions were very vague.
The questions?
Huh?
That survey was done at the very beginning, the
Yeah.
very beginning of that. We're a long ways through that process. So I think the survey you're talking about was done right before we did anything. Trying to gauge what the community is. So
Yeah, and I think that is, you start with something big, and then you distill it down through different public meetings, the steering committee input. Wayne and his staff were at the library several times, and so.
I know, I was there.
I know you were. Good job. You live right next door. Okay, so you start from one, and then you move it all the way down. You start with this great information, and then from that, you distill it down into a plan.
And that was just one part of that particular step when you're doing a big plan like this, is your stakeholder input, and that's where Chris and Trill, they did the survey, and then they tried to go talk to people, and they offered for people to put a comment online, anything else. There's Facebook posts, again, we've had ads in the paper trying to get people to come to the meetings, and but like Wayne said, that's
like the first part of a plan like this is the stakeholder input. And you have to move on with the plan and you stop. It's common to only have a few, stakeholder, like you don't want to have 100 stakeholder inputs. Try to find the best ones.
If you get 20% survey, you're doing good. Just.
I think the school
people's
survey has
tendencies are not to come out until things are planned.
Do you have a question?
I just saying for the communication, pick a business owner, one of us will take the run. I guarantee you, we can all take turns notifying each other. Pick a business owner, we'll make sure we're all here, or somebody is.
Well, as far as being business owners, if I am, it doesn't look like that you guys are kind of being friendly to us at all. You're isolating 4 businesses over there, and you're cutting downtown parking instead of 3 places. Now there's gonna be 1, so we can parallel, and we can have 12-foot sidewalks. You're
That we
making
have to
people-
take care of.
And you're making people go into those back places to park, which are just gonna blow right through town. And to acquire those pieces of ground that people maybe they don't wanna sell, what are you gonna do? Claim eminent domain and take it from them?
No.
How are you gonna acquire them? With the money? I mean, you guys are not being business owner friendly here. You're isolating businesses, you're cutting parking down the middle of town, people are gonna blow right through here.
Well, since this is a work meeting, should we try to figure out what we would pare down, going back to Kyle's comment? What would we pare down off of this?
And a one-way in front of Rob's place, a one-way street in front of Rob's place, Rob's a drawing card for this town.
Absolutely. And so,
A one-way street.
So in the 1996 plan, that was also.
This is 2021.
Yep. And so in here, this, I think, was also designated to kind of have a multi-use as a plazas, because Rob does and I believe it's changed ownership now, is that this could be used as a plaza area for events like the rendezvous that they do. In front of Plain Jane's, they do their great Friday night mingles for those gathering places. And that's where people stop, spend money. Of course, we want this to be not only economically viable, but sustainable and super successful. Rising tides lift all boats. And so that is, and when you make it comfortable for people, with that wide of a sidewalk, Tavern 287, the Long Branch would have the opportunity for outside seating. You could have a couple of tables that.
I already have to take care of the sidewalks because DOT won't.
Yeah.
We are grandfathered in, the city won't take care of it.
Yeah.
I have watched people numerously, at one particular business, very close to me, I'm not gonna slam them. They have an overhang and it drips and it's freaking dangerous. I have watched people hit their heads.
Yeah. And so.
Nothing is being done, but now you wanna give me more sidewalk that I have to pay for because it cracked? I just got forced doing it, how many years ago, babe?
Yeah.
And I was forced.
Yeah. And that's where we could, work at different avenues of, there are, one thing that is on the docket is the marijuana tax that we could be implementing in town. We could create a pool to help offset those costs for business owners.
I shouldn't be responsible for something that is not mine.
That's how, Lori, that's how sidewalks work across the United States. I can tell you that for a fact.
Well, then we need to take responsibility for city to give people tickets. John can run and give people tickets
Absolutely, we
for not
have a
taking
second
care of it.
officer now, so enforcement we should be able to do, and it could be something, whether it be the marijuana tax or some other pool.
But you gotta get that fixed before you put these big large, you wanna put these big large sidewalks in.
And that's the very last thing. That's the very last thing, and that will come, so, some communities have a business district. I know that was reported around here years ago, that there's a business district, and then that pool of money, that hire somebody to come and clear the sidewalks, to make everything, so there's different avenues for that type of thing that you're talking about as a store owner and a storefront.
And one other thing I'll bring up, and we won't go down this road, but this is a thing that a resort tax would be able to help.
Talk to West Yellowstone. Talk to West Yellowstone.
Wait, just one second. This isn't something that we're saying, but you complain about the ability to fix sidewalks. If you are doing a resort tax, potentially, I won't be here to deal with it, but potentially that could go to fixing things that you're talking about, infrastructure.
Talk to West Yellowstone. They don't get it. They still do not have what they need in West Yellowstone.
But go talk to Virginia City, who, on the other hand, is a big proponent and loves their resort tax. And you can't just pick one.
But they're itty bitty. They're itty bitty little towns.
They're government owned. Very true. But they've actually, their voters actually passed an additional percent of a resort tax, so they've got a 4% that they're allowed to get, and then voted pass.
Well,
And
try it again. Keep trying it.
That's something that's
Because
out
what
there.
happens is, what is it, a third of the Yellowstone visitors, which how many millions of people is that? They're coming in, they're using our infrastructure, and then they're saying, see you later.
Then they're
But
not
then they
paying
would
for it, but
happily.
you're
But they're staying at the hotels that are
Not
already getting taxed.
not necessarily, if they're staying at a short-term rental, most likely they are not paying.
So
any
the
kind of benefits.
alternative is that our property taxes go up. So I just got our property tax bill for all.
So did I.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Try having one downtown.
7%, and VRBOs and truck.
business?
If they're registered.
Enormous.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
It's not the greatest option,
If
but
they
it
are
is one out
registered.
there that can help pay and offset some of these costs that the tourists come in.
You're saying right now you're paying taxes.
So, yeah.
So am I.
Okay.
But you're paying a resort tax on top of it.
Okay, Robin, go ahead. I'm sorry, actually, you go ahead. You were happy.
I have a question about the sidewalk. You're saying they can put a table, like by expanding, we'll be able to put a table or whatever. Right now, we're not even allowed to put a sign up on the sidewalk.
Exactly, because
it's not ours.
Well, no, it's also because of ADA requirement and having that clearance. Once you put the sign out, then that reduces the space to walk. So that's part of it. So if you get, I'd love to see sidewalk sales, having those businesses able to put merchandise out, make it inviting for people to come into your business. So, yeah. The reason we don't is we only have a 3-foot sidewalk. If you put a sign that's
Who is saying that you can't? Is it the Montana Department of Transportation?
It's an ADA thing.
Okay.
It's having that space.
Montana Department of Transportation owns it.
Yeah,
Right,
they
they
do.
own it, yes.
And then
That's what I'm saying, how would that change? If they own it, they own it then.
No, as long as you have that clearance, and that's why you can't have that there now. So, and I don't know if you can go to the one picture where they overlaid.
You want to put your business outside.
So, this is just totally concept.
I wouldn't want to put my business outside, I just like to sign sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, welcome, come in.
Yeah, come on in. I'm handing out free samples or that kind of stuff. That is what we're trying to achieve. So it's more comfortable, it's more inviting for these people to come and stay, and they're like, oh, I'm going to my home in Montana. I'm gonna stop for a drink at the Long Branch. When we have these little sidewalks that are hard to navigate, people are at field tents and they go right back. Where if you've been somewhere where you can leisurely walk and look, there's a.
But if there isn't a problem getting people to come to this town, come on.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem.
It's not, or for the businesses.
Okay.
God.
So if you have wider sidewalks and you're gonna set tables out there.
And they're gonna walk around them.
Right. How are these business owners gonna get to monitor them? They can't get people to work in the dining room. They can't bartend and monitor these tables and clean the tables and serve outside and serve in the dining room. They can't get any help as it is.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I don't think so. I mean,
Or you
I get there
won't
is.
try bartending and waitressing outside.
There
in the
are,
back.
there is a labor shortage, absolutely. But when the weather is nice, you can't tell me that those outside seating areas aren't
You
busy.
can't tell me that the labor shortage went away this summer. It didn't.
No, absolutely not. It didn't.
And how many days are you talking about a year
get
that's gonna happen compared.
I don't know
what
if,
it's doing
I don't
to
think
the
Scott is still
senior
here.
citizens and the.
Yeah, and I don't know if Scott was still here. I mean, they do the gravel bar does all sorts of outside dining. And that is the first hot day,
They have
the
an outside-
first day it breaks 50 people
They have
are
an
out
area.
there.
They
They're not
have an
sitting out
area.
on the sidewalk.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
We don't, but the point is, the point I want to make is, Kelly knows it too. When you hire somebody to do a job, you don't hire the least qualified person to do the job. And that's what we got for sidewalks. And you know it, because they cut my sidewalk right in the front of my store still, because it was this much off.
Well,
And then they put it back all broken, and it's still all patched up. It don't look any different than it did 30 years ago.
Yeah, and so that's maybe where we come together as whether it be a business community, on how we want to do that, Is a resort tax a possibility? Is a business improvement a possibility? There is the possibility that Ennis can do 3% marijuana tax. We can pass that ordinance, and that could create the fund to help, help those.
How do you meter out correctly a marijuana tax?
What, I guess
I don't know how you tax marijuana.
Oh, so what they would do is based upon, any store that would be in Ennis, which we currently have one within the town limits, they would add, if we pass the ordinance, and the county can do this too, they can pass an ordinance for up to 3%. And that would go, and then it would be collected by the state, and then it would be returned to the
That's
town.
not of all their sales, though. Just their recreation.
Just their recreational sales.
Which goes into.
Yeah, which goes into
the 1st of January.
I'm an outsider. I've been coming here for many, many years. And this is fascinating for me to watch, and I have a couple of comments, because I was a very big business owner in California.
15, so 3% of that.
The people here are business people.
Yep.
They're the ones that keep the city going. If it wasn't for them and what they do and the taxes that they pay and the revenue that they bring to this town, there wouldn't be a town of Ennis.
Thank you.
And you have done a very poor job, I'm sorry you take offense to that,
Yeah.
of working with the business owners.
No, I take
Without the
advantage.
business owners being on board, nothing is going to happen. So I think you need to go back to your drawing board and work with the business people, get them on board to get something done, because if you don't, nothing's going to change. I've been in a city where this has happened, and the business owners left in droves, and their stores were just empty, and the town went down the hill. And this town is not as big as the town I was in. So I think you need to go back to your drawing board and work with these business owners, because they're hot. And I don't blame them. I don't own a business here, and I'm hot for them, because I have been a business owner. And how many of you are business owners that have made these decisions?
No.
I'm not a business owner.
No, but
here.
you're not
I
a
own
business owner in this town. But the people who are making these decisions, how many of them were business owners?
So nobody is making a decision.
Yes, you have. You've
No,
made decisions.
no, we haven't.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but
He
we
said
haven't.
something a little earlier, that this is not gonna happen until something else happens, but you have in your mind what you want. Now, yes, you're gonna be a little flexible, but you already have in your mind what you're thinking you want. But all I'm saying is, you need to get these business people cooled off and on board, or nothing's gonna happen. And I've seen it happen in other towns.
So let me make one statement on that. First, we've tried. I wish we could have gotten.
Obviously, it failed.
It did.
So,
It
you know
did.
what,
And,
my husband had a saying.
The only, hold on a
No,
second.
wait, my husband
I
had a
let you
saying.
talk, let me
Try
talk.
to pick up that bottle. You can't. So you try. You can't try to pick up that bottle. Either you pick it up or you don't. But if you can't, trying is not gonna happen. You tried, it didn't work. So go back to the drawing board.
This is a plan that is out for reaction. Obviously, you reacted to it, and I recommend that you pull this whole thing. I would not do it.
I think it's gonna sink the rest of the master plan. We did not have to do this. We were down and we were working with a group of people that came in and looked at what are the options? How do we fix some of the things that are wrong with this? What would the solution be? And the solution is we work together and try to, amongst our staff and amongst the folks, and there were some business folks, we talked to you in the back in the corner. I think you were in the room when we started this whole thing, and looked at what are some of the options. Again, this is a draft. This is something for people to react to. You've reacted to it. I recommend you pull the whole damn thing. I think you should remove it, and let's get on with the parts of the master plan that you can get. So that's my opinion at this point.
And I actually tend to disagree with you. I think this is a good plan. When we go to the actual phases, what people are saying is they need to be better informed, and we inform and do a better job at the information side of that to get more people in there when we go into a potential phase one and have the people. I don't think that it's the amount of time and effort that went to this. There are a lot of good things on here. There's some things that aren't as good. Rather than just scrap the whole thing, I think it would be better if we kept it on the books, and then we can pick and choose as we're going, along with the community input and the commission and everyone and the MDT obviously, and continue forward with it, along with the plan.
I would say, I think we could keep this on the books with some, I would do some tweaks. For instance, can I get the map back up?
Oh, take a ghost town now, well.
So this parking lot would have to go away. Portion of this parking lot would get ripped up every year from the gorge. And it's not owned by the city.
He's
He's not gonna sell it. Maybe we can work with this parking lot owner to do something, I don't know.
It's me.
Same with this one, that's private, it is a great idea, but I don't think we're gonna be able to do it.
We talked to Dave. He said anything's possible.
Well, then maybe we can do it, but look, we could do this library thing, we could, this is already done, so like, we don't need to do that, that's already done.
And we could
These
work
back
with,
in parking, those are private lots, so that wouldn't be done.
well, those are, there's a combination of street and parking.
But
This
that would be a good one.
is driving. And sometimes parking, it's a matter of, so my office used to be down by in the Lone Elk Mall in the back. And there's a part of that is paved and a part of that is dirt. And so, all the people parked on the paved area. And in my 11 years, very few people park actually out, they'll park adjoining to the pavement. And so maybe there's public-private partnerships where we can improve that lot. So those folks live, because a lot of those folks in the Lone Elk Mall, they park out in front of their own business. And so how can we work with those businesses? Or there's the lot here, next to Hayden Outdoors, that I have pictures of all throughout last summer. It was never utilized at all, even on our busiest days. There were no cars in the parking lot because my office then turned to right here and I looked at the parking lot, and I have pictures throughout the summer. So there's probably 14 spots there.
But that's private though.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying, public park. Yeah, so maybe we can work with them to improve the lot, because if it was paved, because then people would park there. If there were better signage that you could come through this way. And so maybe that's something that we
So
work
we can use
toward.
like grant money to help private owners of parking lots to fix them up to be better.
And maybe it could be facilitated where if there are businesses down here that they have to, maybe Lone Elk Mall Association would be willing to rent some of those spaces, assigned
Nobody
space.
uses those Lone Elk Mart.
Yeah, because it's a dirt parking lot.
And
That's
there's a
why.
fence and it's kind
As
of
much as
weird.
people say that they love gravel and they love that western dust, they don't. You know that everyone drives down Armitage Street because it's paved and it connects all the way to the highway. So there could be some improvements there to utilize these underutilized parking areas first and making, Kyle's suggestion there. Let's see if the engineers can make that work.
Yeah, or let's see what it looks like if we put a stoplight and then put the parking lot over here by Dean. I mean, would you rather have a stoplight and then a parking lot over here?
I'd rather have a stop right there,
And then
so everybody's business
just leave
is
it the
still
way it is?
accessible.
But
And
that
that
doesn't-
roundabout,
But would
But
you
that
be
doesn't
into
help,
bringing
that
a
doesn't help
parking lot?
people moving your traffic, the flow and the interface out of your. No, I'm just saying if we put it.
What Kyle said earlier.
Yeah, what
But
Kyle
yeah,
said.
kind of what Kyle said earlier, so this is actually moving more parking with trailer parking
Right in
closer
front of
to,
your place.
right in front of your place.
Redraw a map, because I think it's hard for people to visualize what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and maybe that's what it is, we just, if the engineers think that could work, and this is the input that we need, I thought that was a great comment and great feedback.
Have
If
you
we
ever
could-
seen a semi, a double trailer, try and go through a roundabout?
I do, my dad's a truck driver.
Yeah, well, I watched 3 of them.
Yeah, in
on
Billings,
Bozeman.
it's not too
They
bad.
weren't even
Bozeman, it's a
double trailer.
nightmare.
Yeah.
And they're off running over the stop sign, running over the bushes, up and over the middle of the thing.
Yeah.
With as many trucks and campers and trailers and
And that's where
motorhomes full
we'll
of
need to
stuff.
be engineered,
Yeah,
and working with
yeah.
MDT. MDT's not gonna want those things to happen either.
Yeah, and I think it'll have to be somebody
You never
who's gonna
know.
take half of them
You never
businesses out. It's gonna have to be a 60, 70, 80-foot circle.
They did have engineers draw this up.
There's no way.
Just saying.
Jason, what did you just say?
They said they did.
Taught me everything I know.
We should ask Lexus.
She knows everything. I was saying that there was engineers that drew this.
And
plan
it's
up.
gonna go through the ringer with MDT. It's not gonna be like, oh,
Okay, so like just called me something to talk. So the alleyway you were talking about, Lisa, between Hayden and the fishing company?
this, and then there's the parking lot there.
Right, so my office was in that alleyway parking lot
Yeah.
from 2018 till April of 2019. And often my clients couldn't park in there because the public was parking in there. And fishing boats and trucks would pull
Yep.
right in front of my office door. And I'd walk out there, I'm like, what, so as long as there's, I guess, signage
I think that-
potentially,
yeah, and-
but people don't always read signs and they just kind of
I think
entitled and park
I
over
think
the-
that's where like we do a branding issue, like in wayfinding and branding and say, okay, if you want to access these businesses, you park here.
No, don't.
And I just think that there are ways to utilize that, and I also know from right here, there is a huge divot that they filled with gravel that you sink down like 6 inches. And so,
Oh, yeah, no, it was horrible.
yeah, and so I think, and it's kind of like, there's weeds growing up, and it's not very inviting. And so I think those are the things that those small attainable things from the beginning we can work on. So I don't know who's next, like.
Back talking about parking lots and Elk Mall and the library, the library parking lot has, I'm gonna say 6 unused, 8 unused parking lot or parking spaces. I think maybe instead of assuming that paving that parking lot would make people use it, I think maybe you ought to ask why they aren't using it. It
I think
has
it's
a nice
signage.
sidewalk
I think
to
it's-
the side, to the main street.
It's the signage, no one
But-
knows that it's there.
There's a sign up, it's parking in the back.
And I think that's where, it has those green signs, and
But,
now
you
kind of the universal sign is the blue sign for parking.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't think paving is gonna make a darn bit of difference whether they use that or not.
Thank you.
I just wonder how my mom, who's 80-something, is supposed to park at the Lone Up Mall to go shop at My Homes in Montana, which is one of the stores she loves. That is a jaunt for an 80-year-old who's
Sure.
got hip problems That's ridiculous to expect the elderly and the handicapped to try to walk that
No,
far.
keep in mind, there are 100 parking spots on Main Street still.
No,
They
but
don't.
not if you change
Not if
it
you put it in a
to.
parallel.
Yes,
parking.
actually, there's.
Yeah, so there's
We did
there
that
would be,
before.
there's
Before you got-
179
And how
would
many
be.
people are working downtown that take
Well,
up
and
those parking spots?
Exactly, and so, and that's part of that needs to change, that they need to park, whether it be on the side streets, or maybe the employees, you know, Lone Elm Mall Association rents out those to employees, and the employees park over there. And also, there are also handicap stalls that will need to be placed along for every, I think we have a deficit of those right now, because there's two around the pharmacy, and that's it for Main Street. And so that's something that we could approve upon too, is to do that, and to have those handicap spaces available.
Oh, sorry, I'll go to Morgan. I'll come back.
Am I just, tell me if I'm assuming this right. This is a template. You're not going to the state without us backing up.
This is
You're
a
not
draft.
marking it down.
No,
That's
this
what,
is
that's what, I didn't hear that until just now.
This is
This
a
is
draft.
template.
This is a draft. This is a working draft.
As
This is,
long as this is not going down.
no, it's not set in stone. No,
But we
this is
do need to figure out what we are gonna do.
Well, I agree. And
Yeah.
you know what?
Tonight, yeah, but when
I guarantee you, call Lori and every business owner will be here at the next planning meeting.
But one of the things we will try and improve, what we've heard from you, is that we need to get more of the information. That the email
Communication.
system, Brittany said that they're working with that, so getting the communication out, and then it ultimately will be up to you folks to show up to these meetings to give.
Get
the
a hold of
input.
me. I promise I will get a hold of every business owner.
But that's what we need, is the input. I'd love to have everyone here. Some, it gets a little out of hand sometimes, but we'd love having you guys here to tell
we're
us what
gonna
you want.
succeed as a community when we work together.
This is the reason why they call me Mama Bear.
Go ahead.
So several years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, we had a really great process where this woman came from somewhere, I don't even remember what it's called. What was it called? Where she came and she did like a wayfinding study. and-
Erica, yeah, that was through,
I can't remember, but anyway, it was a really, really fantastic use of funds. I think we got a grant, the city got a grant to pay for it. How much of that plan did you guys use, or did you even
So
know that
that-
exists?
so that is part of, so now I remember, it's Rob Gilmore. It was not through the town, it was
Okay.
through the county economic development, their subject, and they hired Rob Gilmore.
Yeah, and that was a really, really good
And what happened was
exercise
that-
for Ennis to go through.
And I don't think it finished. What happened, what happened is Erica, forget her last name, Nita, her husband had the store, the engraving. They moved, and so.
No, it was.
There was one
It was
before, I think you're
before
talking
that.
about the one before that they actually gave community members pieces of.
So they had secret shoppers, where they.
Oh, that's the super host.
Yes.
Yes,
the super
I've
host.
tried,
Montana super
I think
host.
Ginger tried to find that.
That is a fantastic plan.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of work on it, and we spent a lot of money and a lot of time, and then it just kind of went away.
Yeah, and that was from, and I don't know, I had a hard copy somewhere. I called to get a copy of that, I called the state, I called the Department of, it was through the Department of Commerce.
Yes.
And it was probably 12 years ago that happened. Yeah.
I've lived here longer than I thought.
Yeah, so I want to say it was like 2008 or 2009, I think Mr. Bancroft was on there, and it was through the Department of Commerce.
Yeah, it was a really, really good exercise.
There was some
And if
really
we
good
could get a
things.
hold of that, and that was actually part of, we did implement some of the stuff that they suggested. Like, they took the big ugly Jersey barriers out from in front of the school, and they put the rocks there and some landscaping instead. They improved the signage. I think a few of us took advantage of the tourism signs that we didn't know existed.
Yeah.
They told us about it, and there were really good. So if we could get a hold of that.
If you could help me find it
incorporate
on.
that into this design, because it is really good, and it's worth looking
I
at.
don't recall seeing it.
Yeah, because I
But
tried to
it's
find
not to say we
it.
don't
Ginger
have it.
doesn't have a copy. If you can help me, there is a website, the Department of Commerce website, that has, I looked extensively, and I even looked, in my basement for that hard copy that I was randomly given. This was way before I was on the council, but, it was through a department, I believe it was called Superhost.
I think so too.
And so if we can find the division of, the Department of
Because
Commerce
they
that
had-
funded that study.
They had people that they paid, just to give everybody the backstory here, they had people that they paid who had never been to Ennis before. And they said, hey, you're gonna plan a trip to Ennis. And they gave them a budget and said, okay, you're gonna do a trip to Ennis. Maybe they acted like secret shoppers to our town. And their job was to give us feedback on how easy it was to find their way around town, how easy it was to find parking.
What their impression of the
their
town was.
impression of the town. And it was a really eye-opening experience because when you live here for long enough, I mean, it's like the pile of laundry that sits on your couch that you're gonna get to, you know, but you never really do get around to it. And then pretty soon the only reason that you see it is because somebody else comes over, right? So, it's kind of like that. You're like, oh, I guess our entrance to town was kind of ugly with those jersey barriers. I didn't realize how bad it was. And then they put in some landscaping and some rocks and we're like, oh my gosh, that's so much better.
Yeah, and one of the things is like that I recall from being there, I wasn't involved in that process, was like, our town Ennis sign is way up north.
Way too
And then you were like, oh, you go past, you know, several.
And then they were like,
unsavory
it was
items.
impossible to book a hotel because nobody's online. And then a couple of hotels to grab that, and then now you can book hotels online. I mean, it's really simple things that we didn't even think about before.
Yeah.
That I think can really easily.
Yeah, if you want to help me research and find out, because I did look for it on the Department of Commerce site, because they have a whole archive.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if we can't find it, we just do another one. They're gonna, do we have to pay anything for that?
Oh, I'm sure that we
It was a
would.
grant.
It was a grant through the
Yeah.
Department of Commerce, so I guess we'll just have to look harder for that.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I
Everything that they
totally agree.
recommended still applies.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And so, and I did look for it as a reference point for them, but I was unable to find a copy. So I even called the Department of Commerce.
I'd like to see that.
It's so
I'd like
good.
to steal that
So good.
idea.
Hey, I'm sorry. You and Lori.
Okay, so with that, what we've heard and what we've got here, this is I think we leave it in. And then when we start going into phases, then we're not taking anything off the table. We can start taking things off the table when we get into the phase. And we can start having people say, this isn't gonna work, or we love this, but that way we're not taking anything off the table. It's all still on the table and in the plan, and then we compare it back when we get to that point.
And maybe we can have those adjustments. Is
Yeah,
that a
so maybe
possibility?
we can put the wording in there, like, this parking lot may not happen, or this might not happen, something like that.
But that way, then we're not taking anything off the table and we've got everything there still. So if we just say, we don't want the roundabout, we take it off and then it's not in their face to be able to have the conversation.
Yeah, or if we don't
And I
want to do the Main Street
And I think
parking,
those, yeah.
we can take that off.
Yes.
Well, I think one of the main things is maybe to take Kyle's suggestion and move that over here to benefit these businesses. And really, I think what we're trying to do is and I'm sorry Chris feels that way, that this is cutting them off. I think they're already cut off by that intersection. So we have to work better to get that incorporated to downtown, because our downtown is geographically stymied by the river. We really need to go this way. So how do we get people, when this gets redeveloped at some point, to grow that downtown and to make it a cohesive unit?
He did seem somewhat receptive to moving the parking lot over by his place.
Yes.
Sure.
And this is probably for Wayne. Wayne, they leave this in, decide on these few changes or whatever and adopt it into the master plan. And then something comes up that they want big changes. How do you go about making those changes in the master plan? Can you?
Are you talking about after the fact, after it's approved?
After it's approved.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about making the changes before. I mean, this is an enormous effort that I did. We didn't have to do it, we did.
I know, but that's why I don't want to throw it away.
And I'd like to say thank you for doing it. It's unfortunate that you didn't have our voices. That's the sad part of it.
I'm gonna argue with you all day long on how much effort we tried.
Well, I know you
We
tried,
just
but
really
it
tried.
didn't succeed.
But you brought a lot of people in to help you do it. How many people from Ennis were there?
probably half a dozen that showed up. We were just working around the
No,
table.
do you understand what I'm saying?
That's not.
The local.
But we had already gone out and talked to, well, I'm not gonna curse.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for putting time in, especially time that you're saying you weren't allotted and you really didn't have to do. I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking the fact that I didn't know. So you can
And
take
here
this.
is your opportunity, tonight was your opportunity to review.
Lori.
It as two
Yes.
nights.
Jerry that
As-
worked for you all summer is one of the guys that's on the steering committee.
Well, that's sad, I
That's
did
why
not.
this is disheartening.
Well, there's the failure.
Well, like I said,
Maybe you should
get a
just-
hold a hold of somebody like Mama Bear and everybody will know.
The problem is that, and we all know too, is that we as a community, we don't show up until something is bad. The school board, the new school, 5 years of planning, and nobody showed up, and they begged, borrowed, and stole, and tried. And we all knew about it, and nobody showed up. I mean, it's just, and until something bad happens and we wanna fight, then we show up.
I don't even think if it's something bad, I think it's just something new, like
Right.
it's almost like a
Change,
new,
absolutely.
a knee-jerk reaction.
And the
Well, I
nice thing
think
would be
that
is
we're-
if now that we are here, if we could be helpful and we get to have a say, and like Marie said, like, it sounds like we can help design, we can help create, like a wonderful way for people to get to Demos and Napa and, right? I mean, yeah, is that true?
But
Yeah, I
it's
think-
just been forward. We just all got fed. I mean, Allison, I heard they're putting a plan in and they're going for it. You're doing parallel parking, and I went,
And that's just.
what?
And that's where the misinformation was, this is a draft, this isn't even a draft, the
These
draft
are
is not
just
even.
suggestions.
But that's how you got all of us,
Just
and that's how I get people's attention. I'm not gonna give you a paycheck if you don't listen to me. What?
Yeah.
We're making changes. Get your butt down here.
Can we get an alternate plan with a stoplight instead of the roundabout to look at?
Agreed.
I wish Sherry Shows was here
It's gonna cost
because do you know how many people have said that if you put a stoplight in our little one-horse country town, that they're leaving? Yeah. I mean, I think that's why you didn't do the stoplight, right?
Oh,
And
I know,
think that's
I
why
know,
they-
and it's been a big deal for a long time, but obviously that's gonna have to change.
But I
And
think
that's
the
a change
roundabout
that
that
I-
have the same comment. I think people tonight chose a stop sign over
I think a lot of
roundabout.
people in this room didn't like the roundabout, but a
A
lot of people that I've talked to are okay with it.
I don't personally mind it, but the issues that are brought up about the hazardous,
And that
trucks and
also
that kind of
sounds
stuff,
like-
that does make me kind of think twice about that. And I personally, I think a roundabout is a good deal, but if we could actually get a visualization of what a stoplight would look like there,
It wouldn't really
it
be
would
anything,
helpful.
it wouldn't be anything different.
And wouldn't MDOT be the one that determined whether or not it was a stoplight?
Yeah.
So
wasting
MDOT is
time.
gonna do this, before they do anything, before they did anything remotely like this or could stop, like, they would have a public hearing on it, they would invite you, hopefully you'd show up, and you would be able to talk about, because that's a part of their process, just like it's part of this process, trying to.
Well, we had a good meeting at one time over at school.
If we're pushing about Terrell to spend their time and energy and efforts and money to, and I think you got a good point, it'd be nice to see it on paper.
It wouldn't look anything different.
But it wouldn't accomplish.
I mean, I guess we can take what we have now and
We're
just
not
put
gonna
up a-
answer it, the MDOT is gonna handle it.
But I think ultimately, and Christy made a really good point last meeting, is that when you go to MDT with a plan that the
Right.
community supports, they're more receptive to that, as opposed to putting our head in the sand and saying, MDT, okay, you're gonna put a stoplight, just let us know when you wanna put the stoplight in. That's not, if we're proactive and working with them and inviting the conversation, and we all get on the same side,
Well,
because
we're
we
at-
all want the same
Let's
thing.
get a turn lane in Madison Foods, because that's where all the wrecks are.
And that's a
Yeah.
talk with, so MDT, I believe, is doing, are they chip sealing
Yes.
next summer, 2023,
Yeah, they have
something? There is public comment for that. You can do that.
There's conversation.
And
on
that's
the
where we
second
want
lady in
to
there. Another
get
way.
them involved in saying, hey, we're thinking to the future, as opposed to like, okay, just give us what you're gonna give us. Let's be proactive, because they are an organization that things, and I know in the past they've been really sticklers for things, but that is changing with them. It's not gonna be an immediate change because they are such a large organization, but I think we just need to come together collectively and figure out a plan that we can all stomach, that we're all gonna maybe make compromises on, and work together as a unit to advocate for that and advocate for our community.
I think a lot of people are really, they think that you're putting this up and it's like, oh my God, next week they're gonna start tearing up the roads and changing all this stuff. And they don't get that it's just, these are the ideas that we got somebody to plan for.
Professionals.
And yeah, professionals to plan for, but they're all in the flat because they're like, oh my God, they're gonna change it. Next summer it's gonna be all this construction. It's like, and that's not it at all. And people are, I don't think they're understanding this. They see this master plan and they just don't understand that it's a long-term. But we have to have something that we can base funding on.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That any kind of big funding, with the ARPA funding coming out, or every once in a while, they'll be like, oh, the transportation has this grant program. You have to have a plan.
Yeah.
To say, okay, yeah, we've got a project that fits your criteria.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of time and effort to do this, and sometimes that grant funding is not there for a long time. They're like, oh, you got 3 months to figure it out and present a proposal to us. So if we have something ready, it's more likely to succeed.
Well, I think we can make this work with just a few tweaks, and it would get other people to back us instead of fighting us. And that's what we don't want. We don't want to be fighting. I suggest we say that the phase 3 might not happen. It's just an idea. We can leave it in there, phase 3, just a concept. I think I don't know if we can get that to be moved. It's probably gonna take a lot more than you would think to just move the parking lot over here, but.
Yeah,
This
is an ordeal.
Yeah.
The whole thing is an ordeal.
Wayne, is there any, I don't know anything about any of this, but is there a way to tweak a roundabout that would, I think they just hate that road takes them in there and then they're basically just in there. Is there a way to tweak the roundabout that would make it way more user-friendly for demos and Napa?
Yeah,
I don't know.
again, let's say MDT was gonna do this. They're gonna go through half a dozen at least locations, configurations. It will look completely different than that, I can guarantee you. So the idea, again, this is just, I don't want to say it's a pretty picture that has a lot of thought put into it. I'm confident that if we went out and built the thing tomorrow, it would be great. I'm also confident that for about 6 months, I'd have to live somewhere else because I'd be skinned. Ultimately, again, I think what I'm trying to convey is this is a visual opportunity for you to see what your downtown could do. And not getting, completely hung up on how many parking stalls are in front of my business. I see how many there could be, but ultimately what, the engineering turns out it may be different than that. That's master plan.
That makes sense.
I feel like you guys should really pound that message home to the community. Like, this is preliminary, guys. Like, this is not what's this might not be what happens, but this is the direction.
It's a vision of what could happen.
Because when you see in the front page, like, hey, look, we've got this new thing. Everybody who's affected, Chris and Stacy and Lori, of course they're gonna come down because that's what they see, and they're running their business. You're running your business. I run my business. You don't always have the time to read the paper or go on Facebook and about making money and a living, So it's a challenge and it's hard. So, and it's a lot of change, but change has to happen eventually.
Well, and you have to
Things
plan.
always change.
and you have to plan for it.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's up to you guys on the council to communicate with everybody in the town, especially with, not to continuously hammer on the roundabout, but like the businesses that affects, because it's a big deal to them specifically.
Involve everybody in the phases.
Yeah. to
And
go
be
with that.
flexible for changes.
And that's
because there
your
are other
responsibility, because you
ideas.
represent those people as town council members.
There was
I don't
a
even live in
huge
town.
flat, just when they put the sidewalks in there for crying out loud, I remember that. Oh my
Yeah,
God. That was a big deal, sidewalks.
Can you tell me where in this plan, and I know that you said that it's in here, but can you tell me where in this plan? I've looked through it multiple times, and you've told me that it's in here, but I just can't find it about the east end of town.
The
It's-
plan.
It is not. in
So
here.
so all that is a presentation. Which, are you
This is
talking
the
about?
presentation that you, from the.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a presentation. We haven't written, actually, we're writing the plan.
Okay, because every time they say, what are we gonna do, you're like, it's in the plan, and we're like, okay, I guess I haven't.
So,
looked at it.
so I can tell you what our intentions are. Our intentions are that you have pedestrian access across the bridge, that you can do something, and we're recommending that.
Is
you
this
do-
online somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing is online.
This?
Yep.
Do you see it?
Yep, that's what Brittany has pulled up.
Yeah, what I have printed out is what you have on your screen.
And then there's more pages to that.
All you have, right, this is just the same.
I've looked all over you guys, I can't find them.
Yep,
No,
this
but
is, I mean, Brittany's on the website now.
This is just a presentation for the public,
Right,
and
yeah.
writing the detailed.
Yeah, you don't
plans
have the
that
draft plan yet.
But that, what you have, that schematic
So,
there
Robin,
is
I'm on the
in
County
here.
Trail website up there, and it is under resources, 10/13/21 public meeting presentations.
That's this, that's not this.
That's what I.
Yeah.
That's what she's been pulling up. That's what she's been pulling up the whole time.
Okay, well, then I didn't print out right.
Is it 2 seconds?
So what, again, your question is, what's
The east end
recommended
town.
on the
Yeah.
east end?
What's recommended on the plan?
Recommended is some form of a gateway feature. I don't know what that looks like. Some form of a designation that you're arriving, some real arrival sequence from the south. We recommend that MDT address slowing traffic down. And we're recommending that you start with temporary rumble strips, something that is there that can be removed. and
Starting
nobody
where
knows.
though?
I don't know, and you won't know. It's not our job to do the engineering on it. It's our job to tell them, you've got a problem.
It's fine, I'll just look harder.
Yeah, well, and it's, and again, it's referring to, that's a presentation, so it's not a 100-page document.
So what you
But
got was
this
just for tonight.
Is on that website.
Yes, yeah, that's what,
So
Okay.
it's this right here.
I've been looking at the wrong thing, public meeting.
I was just calling.
Dude, I'm telling you that right
You're
there.
looking at
Yeah,
July
that's the
14th,
first page of it.
maybe?
No, this is October 13th, public meeting. Slideshow.
Okay, while she's doing that, let's start to wrap this up a little bit. Can we leave this, now my suggestion is we leave this as is. Does anyone
I'm
disagree
missing
with that?
something somewhere, obviously.
Corey?
Other than, yeah, I guess what Wayne said earlier, doing a mock-up of having a stop sign or a stoplight in there would be.
I think we just need to take an aerial and draw that in, because it's not gonna change the configuration there at all.
Right.
So, yeah, so it would be, a stoplight where the stop sign is, and then probably a stoplight from the Kmart corner, and then maybe a stoplight at County Street.
Yeah, there'd have to be one going east, or one going west, one going east, and one going north.
Yeah, so the roadways actually wouldn't change.
You probably have to put in a wider, or a longer turn lane from the west, and then coming up the hill, you'd have to change it.
Yeah, it would be a Frankenstein looking thing probably.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it would, the roads wouldn't actually change. They might be slightly wider, but it's not gonna be. Brittany, could you go to, either Google Maps or Montana Cadastral.
I say we leave it just in case future, if they do ever go to do storm drainage or curb and gutter type situation, I can't fathom them ripping up sidewalks and putting any kind of drainage in without looking at or at least redoing the plan or the ideas of the sidewalks. So I think it's there as a reference.
And in the draft, I think if we can make some tweaks to it using input from this evening and,
Oh my God. Sorry.
Was that just to use Google?
Yes.
Oh.
Google
Can you
Maps.
just type, oh, okay, just,
There we go.
oh.
Okay.
Maybe do this layer down here and then zoom in. So I'm not a traffic engineer, but yeah, you probably you're gonna have to have a stoplight here, somewhere over on this end, and then somewhere over here. So whether you're stopping these cars before they go north, or it's somewhere in here. And yeah, maybe it might be slightly wider, but
Why would you have another light down at the bottom that could
I know
still
what
be
you're going,
people
used?
are coming from,
Yeah, so those people could come up and there would be a stoplight there at that intersection that would handle all three sides.
well, no, because you're gonna have, these people
Yeah.
have to stop, and they're gonna have to somewhere stop down here.
Stop sign's not gonna work.
Converge.
They'd have to blow that entire section out.
Yeah,
There's
they
no
would.
way a
It'd have to
stoplight
be,
would work in that.
that's why I said they'd have to be wider.
Yeah, and then that takes a look
I
at,
can already see it, you'd have to have
Where
some on the other side.
People who weren't at tonight's meeting are going to lose their minds when they find out we've been talking about stuff like this.
they will, but that's our choices. I mean, I'm just going back to 1996. So that's,
Keep in mind, it's not gonna be one stop like that.
not gonna be, and that's just it, and so,
Change that.
and that's just it, so, just for a second, so going back to 1996, in 1996, they said, you can either do a roundabout, or we can work on a compromise. They came up with a compromise. This compromise has lasted these past 20 years, and now we're faced with the same decision. Do we want a stoplight, because it's probably coming, or do we want to try to do something proactive?
I'm just saying.
I know, I just.
Wayne, you think tonight was bad?
Yeah.
Add that to the buzzword list, Wayne. The list of buzzwords I gave you. Add that to it.
Yeah.
Resort tax, stoplight.
Yeah.
Parklet, transparency.
I'll post it on Facebook for you guys.
And then they make sure you have your
I
meetings.
just say,
at
hey, we're
school.
gonna put it in a stoplight.
Yeah, we
Oh
try
my gosh.
to do a meeting at the school.
No,
every
I'm just saying,
Or at
if
the
she
library.
puts the buzzwords in,
Yeah, no,
meetings at the school.
Yeah.
but this is a proposed draft.
Yeah.
Not
I
even
I
a
feel
draft.
better now,
It's not
I
even-
feel better now walking away.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for
Let's
getting me out.
go ahead and wrap this up.
Okay.
No, she's not.
Then we're not making.
I just had a question.
So should we is it gonna be worth you trying to move the roundabout in the parking, or should we leave it just as is and deal with it when we get into the phases?
What I would do, if you really want to show this, is to say, this is your consultant's recommendation.
Some of them are. Like,
And then I would have a second image that just basically says, is more conceptual, that says, consider moving over here,
Okay.
roundabout down here, not doing phase 3, leaving that, although I don't know.
I think you should leave phase 3 in
I
there
think
as
you should
well.
do
Is that-
phase 3 and
Could that be
2.
a bargaining chip for us with the state, because they want it to be parallel parking, right?
Yeah, and that's,
If we have to put in, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to do a application every year to have the parallel parking?
No.
No.
so, but I mean,
Yeah.
The plan, this is so important when we go to the state, regardless of whether you like it, don't like it, because like Wayne has said, they're gonna change it no matter what we want them to do.
So but help me understand by putting the parking lot up here by Demos, because everybody agreed that nobody's gonna park and walk. I mean, it's down, I mean, granted, it's downhill.
I think it mitigates their issue.
I think what you do is
I don't think I
you add parking up here.
There's no parking
Do
there
you think
too.
Demo would want it?
There's already
Space is
parking
so
there.
tight.
This is parking.
He wants parking.
What if we cut this parking lot in half and put part of it over here and move that slightly?
But you're gonna move the whole highway to do that?
But we haven't moved anything yet.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gonna have to move the whole highway that way. Putting it across here actually makes more of a safety hazard than anything trying to cross 3 lanes of highway. If you watch people do it all the time, it's kind of terrifying.
I think their concern is obviously parking. That's been Chris's thing.
Well, it's
for
also
all-
egress.
Well, and actually what Sarah said is she feels like if nobody's gonna pull in here, they're just gonna bypass it, is what she thought.
I don't think so. People want to go to her place no matter what. And I just.
She really feels, like, that's why I wondered if maybe there was a second lane.
So this is two-way. This is,
Right.
yeah. So if they're, well, in a second lane, it's gonna make this more complicated. And so maybe we know this and if there's a way to visually show them where the parking is and how many stalls and what they have, or.
And the state would even allow that because of the access. That's an access issue there too.
Maybe part of the grant money can be spent to demolish this building.
Yes, your question.
Chris owns that.
I know.
What would
The little
happen?
orange building.
If this is true?
It's now on Chris's.
Let me finish.
I'm putting that on Facebook too for you guys.
Well, we're paying.
What would happen if this is 287 and it's wide, and you come right down this way
It's just a work session.
through town?
That's how the original.
And then you could still have the cutoff for the right-hand turn. This would be the problem here of these people getting onto here. But if this here was wide enough, it would go right down this here way, right down
That's what it
Main
used to do,
Street,
John,
right
wasn't
on
it?
down.
And that
Yeah,
was
that's what it did.
back in the
20 years ago.
And they
nineties.
got rid of it because it didn't
That's
work.
what it did, it used to.
I mean, what we have
You've
now
been
is-
here how long?
I know, so you'd have to come
Yeah,
across
so
the
it
traffic.
did that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I guess if we can have the concentration here and mitigate their
It comes
concern.
down like this here, the traffic would move real good. You only, like I say, and they have the
I just love the
right-hand
idea
turn.
of that big
This
parking
would be the
lot,
problem
that
here.
gravel
These
But
pit.
how
people-
would these people get
Being able to
across?
utilize all of that?
We have the backup that we have now, but probably worse.
For
Oh,
trade
you
by the
mean-
town.
You mean where these crosswalks are?
No, but I mean, somebody's gonna have to come across that highway and people are already coming down. You're gonna have more backup than you'll ever, that's insane. Okay.
Yeah, but I guess if we could just
I know.
mitigate this to them,
Yeah, so we
because
just
I
keep it
feel
like
the
this.
same way as Robin. People, they might freak out about an hour, they're gonna freak out about a stoplight.
Because it's gonna have to be 3 stoplights.
It's gonna be 3 stoplights.
Yeah, I would,
Well, first of all, you have to check the state if they will even allow it. You can talk all you want, but if the state says no,
But
they
that's
have
all
to hear
starts
your plan.
conversations.
Okay, let's go.
yeah, what I would do is again, show this and then have a second.
Like an overlay.
Overlay to say, here's some of the comments that we've heard, some of the concerns. And I wouldn't hide. I mean, it's further beyond
Because it was mainly older Ennis, no offense to anyone, but you.
Yeah.
And if we had, I mean, when you're going to different downtowns, if we have good signage directing them to this parking, if this is now, we're utilizing this little park to get people out to the front, you know, and I did talk to Dave, and if we have blue signs and we are, you know, it's like, here's our parking, and with online stuff
Yeah.
now,
We're recommending that you do the wayfinding anyway.
yeah, and if we are able to, you know, anybody now goes to Google Maps when they're going to a place, if we're able to implement, saying, here's public parking, so they can set a pin and go right there and I turned right here, because they're setting their GPS anyway. And so if we can direct them to, I think there's small little things that we can utilize like that to help the traveling public.
because I don't travel enough, because I never do that when I go anywhere. I pull in and I'm like, oh, what's over here, what's over here? I think here's how up to date and accurate Google is. She gets a call at 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, are you open? Can I come in and have some copies made?
Yeah.
Well, and that's, we're open 24/7.
Well, and you can,
You can't, no, you can't.
It's totally off subject, but you can't say that you don't have specific hours. You have to set specific hours. And I don't
Or
have
they
set
say you're.
hours.
yeah, well, that's just,
So they're not always up to date.
well, I think for public parking, public entities like that, of course, it's not gonna be the hours, but it's gonna show you on the map where the public parking is. Especially if you provide that information. I mean, if you look at things like the apps now, Onyx, these things, that's what everybody uses. So not everybody, but I mean, for people traveling to your area, and if we have the visual signage other places.
Does it make sense? Pros and cons of phase one, pros, cons, just a list of each, so everyone feels.
We don't have to be in a hurry.
I don't think
You can identify.
Risk benefit.
Sorry.
You can identify.
You can just put out a survey, stoplight or roundabout.
49.50.
Yeah, exactly.
You can put a survey on Facebook.
Stoplight.
Really easy.
Well, and here's the thing, and when I talked to Wayne Black about the roundabout, he's like, oh, we were afraid of little old ladies getting, stuck in the roundabout. They would have done it 20 years ago, we wouldn't have had to have this conversation.
I don't know, after listening to this woman back here with the hazardous material and slowing down, this really gives me a lot of.
And I think that's where we have to work, way back here at the lumberyard. And I know that Looter is where, and that's where entrance to town needs some traffic.
Like that sign needs to also.
It needs to move off of that hill and down, and there needs to be some traffic calming measures along this whole corridor.
Because I just.
Just
wasn't
right.
even picturing.
I know, but he
Sound
comes
like
back.
sliding
He
around
starts
this.
looking.
Yes, look, snow removal, that's my biggest thing with that.
So where my dad lives and drives truck is Buffalo, New York. And Buffalo, they move snow like you've never seen before in your
Yeah, but
entire
that's
life.
New York though, I mean, that's not here.
No, but I'm saying, but as far as the roundabouts, it's possible. It is possible.
Of
And
course
yes,
it's possible, absolutely, but.
and maybe if,
Man,
Like
it
all
makes
the
me nervous, though. And it should make everybody nervous.
it's changed.
It should
And
make
it's gonna
everybody
do-
nervous, which is good, because that means you're paying
People to
attention.
show up.
I mean, those kind of concerns that lady was talking about aren't even something we should be thinking about. That's something that the DOT is gonna look at, and engineers are gonna look at, and they're not gonna make something that's gonna not work.
Yeah.
But we need
I don't
to
know.
have one of our wants and wishes is that we don't have hazardous trucks come through here.
Exactly, maybe
And
we
we
need to
want it,
designate
and we-
this highway as a historic
Now that
highway or
we've got
something, and
somebody
now
who,
there's no.
whatever it
trucks.
takes.
doesn't just shut us down whenever.
Well, and that's where I think if we do this in conjunction with advocating for the way station, that is critical. Is getting that way station manned. Because that is gonna slow down. I mean, that's one of the things that we could start doing now.
Right, that wakes them up in the middle of the night. So,
Exactly. So I think that's something that is a tangible thing that we can work
Unfortunately,
towards
it's a real
now.
thing.
yeah.
I feel like I printed every other page. Because I don't have this in my, oh, I'm so upset.
If I slip you a 20, can she have this one?
I don't know, is that the office copy? That's the office copy.
Okay, but look at the front, look at the front of it, look at the front of it.
I had a copy, but it's
It's
gone.
to draw on and mark on.
Does it do that?
I think you got the plan, or you heard the feedback.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Anyway, do you want this? Because I mean, I can print.
No,
Because then we were not sitting with that whole one, and we were kind of pulling that up and saying.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, we will do that, we'll, someone will pull up that old one and then we'll.
Do you have it? Was it out of order?
No, it's in there.
Oh, you're not.
It's
taking it out. It's on Facebook.
Thank you for coming. And
It's not a bad plan, it's an incomplete plan.
Thank you,
Well,
Wayne.
that's-
I'm gonna go, guys.
And like, and I believe that Nora sent out, because I know she sent it out to the commission. I believe the steering committee was on there too, that she sent out goals and objectives of the plan too, of what the language is as well. So, and she was looking for feedback from that, so I don't know if the steering committee.
Maybe have a conversation with the steering committee.
But here's the thing, Ron, we wanted to take a step back from that.
Exactly.
Because I didn't want it to be
Yeah,
the
yeah,
resident.
doesn't have
City
to-
council should not
Just
be
the
in
way
charge
it
of
is,
contact.
it's upset.
I'm 100% in
I'm
favor
not
of you guys
crossing.
stepping back and letting the community do the work, and the steering committee is a part of that.
I don't think they didn't have a leader, and that's the problem.
Well, and if
You
they're
know,
not
there's
doing
9
the work,
individuals
then
and they didn't
somebody
have
else
someone
needs
to
to
lead
resolve
them.
Okay, here's another question. If the board changes next month, this could all be for naught? This could all just
Not
go away?
necessarily.
I don't think so.
Not
But we started the groundwork for the next crew.
3 of them, well, this one,
Christy, John.
John and Christy will still be on there.
And that's still a document the town is
There's-
working on.
There's only one committee member, person running for the city council that will be a naysayer on it.
Yep.
And I'm worried.
That's correct.
Yep, and
So-
she didn't do anything in the past.
She didn't do anything in the past, and she's not gonna do anything in the future, so I just.
One person doesn't lead the council.
Well.
But they can be as real negative.
They can be very,
Oh, that's right.
and that's exactly what happens.
Guys.
with this redo.
Right.
And
So
so
that's
that's
what I'm
what
worried
we
about. I
should
think-
began last week after we met too, is that's what happened, why all the rumors and all that, everything, that's how that all got started.
Because people don't have a conscience anymore of spreading misinformation.
People don't read, it's in front of them.
They'll read
Nobody
2
saw the word draft. This is a huge opportunity for all of us. I mean,
For all, for
all
our
of
future,
us.
for your grandkids, for our kids,
everybody.
for everybody to do.
Well, I just think
things.
that Ennis had some major.
You don't have to listen. She's looking at me.
It's time to go.
It's gonna grow.
Well, that was a while ago.
Yeah. And Wayne had a really good point when we were talking about the Riverside, is we want to bring them into the fold, because then that way you can work with them. If you just, because if we just say no, they're gonna build it in the county or whatever, so we've got to work with that. And
Absolutely.
come up with guidelines that we all can live with.
But here's the whole thing with Riverside, and they've said this, I've met with the developers on this, unless they annex into town, they're not doing it. They won't do it in county, they can't do it because they're too close to our lagoon to start with, they would get blown over. The only way that that's coming to Ennis is if they're annexed into the town, because they won't be able to do it with that.
Who decides that?
So they have to fill out an annexation process. The hospital is currently trying to do that with the 11 acres. And so we are trying to, I don't think the town has ever really done it right into our code and follow stuff. And we're trying to, that's why we hired a firm. It's been, a copy of a copy of a copy, and then things fall to the wayside and people don't get treated the same, like that. And so that is what we're trying to do, is saying, okay.
I think one of the smartest things that Ennis could have done is hire a company.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know how to write a master plan.
They're the great, yeah, it's like,
You don't know how to write a master
No,
plan.
and they
You
have
don't know how
so
to write
many,
a master
they
plan.
have specialists, they have like one gal.
Might
that
not agree
loves
with everything that they
zoning.
put out,
They
but
have,
you
they
can
have
take back
traffic
some
engineers.
ideas.
Yeah, thanks again, he did take that.
What's that?
People not agreeing with everything you put out.
It's just gonna happen.
Yeah, I've been in some rough crowds. I've been trying to figure out in 35 years if I've ever been in this rough a crowd.
You're not the
course it would be
You're not the first person to say it either.
What's that?
You're not the first person to say that,
No, I
which is
don't know
sad.
that I've ever been in this.
That's one of the
rough
reasons the
crowd.
Department of Transportation just flat out stopped working with us.
I can see that.
No, I know, and I don't know that you can change, those
I don't
lines.
know. I mean,
Actually, we've done a really good job of mending some of those fences. It's taken a lot of work. Because like I said, when we got in, they wouldn't even talk to us.
With MDT.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
even. And now we've actually got an open dialogue with them, and they listen to us a little bit. Not on everything, but at least they'll take our call now.
No.
Okay.
Thank you, have a good evening.
Well, you know me, if I'm behind the plan, I'll work like the Dickens to get it passed and do it.
And I told her I'd be her worker bee and do whatever she told me to do, so.
Right.
I'm not smart like you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye, guys. Good night.
Okay.
This is why we don't start meetings. Oh, actually, it's only 8:15, okay.
8:15, we've been here since 5.
I know, that's why I said, well, we would have started at 6, we'd be here till
I didn't be here at 4:30. I'm getting beat up out in the park.
Christy, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
That's because you're not here.
I feel bad, I forgot to ask you what you thought about everything. I asked everyone that was here, but I didn't ask you.
I spoke when I needed to.
Okay.
Super nasally though.
Do you need anything?
Okay. I just didn't want
No.
to give everything up.
You sound great.
Hey, Christy, call us if you do, okay?
I will.
All right.
A couple of things. The check-in for the hospital.
Yep.
Yeah, she came over, got it.
You gave him, got it.
Okay. Perfect. All right, and